You need to send the wife for 2 weeks for pain?
Yeah.
That's the one.
Okay, we're good? Everybody good? Good. Okay. Welcome to the August 18th City Council meeting. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hagan?
Here.
Councilmember Bellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Crumick?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Swift?
Here?
And Mayor Alves.
Here. All right. This evening, it looks like we're going to start off with presentations. The first one is Citizen of the Month, Mr. Bill Ullman. And he is here because I see him, and I now recognize who he is. Yeah, long time. I remember when you moved to town. It's quite a while ago. Got a nice little car, too. I remember that one.
I remember you coming up and just talking to me and kind of making me welcome, so.
It's my job.
It's probably just you two.
It's my nature, yes. You know, before we give this to you, Bill, I received a letter from someone here in the audience, and, you know, I'm going to ask that person to get up and say a little bit about you. And would you do that for me, please, Peggy? You know Bill better than probably anybody.
Well, we decided, along with the rest of the Escalon Senior Fund Bunch, that Bill was very deserving of this award. Since we started the Senior Fund Bunch 3 years ago, actually we'll have our birthday here pretty soon, Bill has come to every one of our events. He comes out most of the time, or many times, with his 57 Chevy and parks it right in the front. And
yes, he does.
Welcomes everybody in. So he's hardly missed anything unless he was ill. But besides that, right after we got our Senior Fund Bunch started, we decided to start a walking club here in Escalon, and it's called Senior Steppers. So 3 days a week, we meet at Brentwood Park, which is on the corner of Justin and Mission Streets. And Bill has been there every single time. In fact, we started out on a Monday and Friday with the seniors walking, but because Bill decided that 2 days wasn't quite enough, that we needed to do 3, so it was his idea to start a 3rd day, which everybody said they wanted to do. So now they walk 3 mornings a week at 9 o'clock. Bill is there before anybody gets there. When we turn the corner, he brings all the chairs. We've got quite a group that comes out, and he has the chairs all set up. He brings the waters. He's got the waters there. So they do a lot of chatting before they walk. It's really all about the camaraderie, and it's really because of Bill that this whole group has really taken off. And he loves it just as much as we all love coming and participating, and he's really helped this group continue. And so after the walk, we go back and sit down again, and Bill is a great conversationalist for all of you that know him, and so everybody loves to hang out. And we have some of the steppers back here that come every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So he does that, and then also he attends the Tuesday, Thursday senior lunch group at the community center. And this past year, he's even taken up the role as the exercise leader because the person who was leading exercise can't do it anymore. So Bill is now the exercise leader, and he does that. And he really is a true ambassador for Escalon seniors. He absolutely loves the spirit of Escalon, and he says that he feels like our town is just true Americana. And I interviewed him for an article in our senior newsletter when we first got started, and Bill told me that if Norman Rockwell had been able to visit Escalon, there might have been a famous painting representing our town. And in my opinion, if Norman Rockwell had come to town to paint Escalon, he would have painted Bill right in the middle of that painting. So that's why we wanted to honor him, and we're so happy that he's been chosen as Escalon City Citizen.
Thank you, Peggy, very much. Thank you. City, Bill, we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
And we're so glad to have you. I remember the first time I ever met you, I said, this guy will fit perfect. You had the true nature of an Escalonian, and I hope
wow, nice.
There you go. And I hope that you continue what you do, and that
Beautiful.
we'll
I have a few
I was
things.
going to say, Bill is one that he
Gotta get a picture to Marge.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
All right, there you go, buddy.
You know, my family appreciates this, and I appreciate it. It's a great honor for me. I do tell everyone, when they ask me about Escalon, I tell them that Norman Rockwell would have loved this place. He was on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post for 40 years, and he kind of portrayed this sort of thing, the athletic fields that we have, and he just, loved small town America. And we have beautiful parks here. They're safe parks. When we take off and do our walking, we look out at the park behind us, and it's just always just safe, and families come out and play on the playground equipment. And it's, family is number one, I think, in this town. Family is number one. And I have an extended family, and a lot of them are here tonight. I'm not. And they're in the Cedar Steppers, and got me started in that. The community lunches that we have on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's a nice communion of people. It's, a lot of people need, when they get older, kind of like me, it's nice to have other people to relate to, The Fun Bunch, which is just amazing, maybe, 5 or 6 people, or, just a few people, and they do an amazing, I'm sure some of you have been to their functions, they do an amazing amount of work. And I say, well, how do you do that? We love it. We like each other a lot. They never quibble or anything like that among themselves. The volunteers put in huge amounts of hours. And I can do the things that, that I've done, and I'm proud of them. And I've received my reward with great gratitude. But some of these volunteers, my God, they work 6-8 hours a day. We have great volunteers here, as everybody here knows. Like I say, Norman Rockwell would have loved this place. I know I do. I can't imagine me living anywhere else. I have lived a lot of other places, but this is my favorite, and I'll be here right at the end.
Thank you, Bill, that's very nice. And Peggy, thank you for your help. Okay, we're gonna move down here to the next item. It's gonna be SJ Cog, and they're gonna have a little Kim Anderson. Go ahead, Kim.
Well, that's going to be hard to follow, so
I'll tell you.
talk about transportation.
There we go.
Thank you very much. I'm Kim Anderson. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning for the San Joaquin Council of Governments, and Councilperson Bellinger is your representative on our board. And I noticed Gracie Marks, who's a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, in the audience too. Oops. There we go. Yeah, slide. This is what we're going to cover this evening. Slide. And we'll slide again. There's a lot of filler in here. For those of you unfamiliar with who the San Joaquin Council of Governments are, we're the regional planning agency. Mostly we do transportation, but we're also involved in several other things, including Census Data Center, the Airport Land Use Commission, Measure K, we're the sales tax folks, the half-cent sales tax folks. We run a freeway service patrol, and we're also involved in rail and transit planning as well. Slide. But the main thing we do is the Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy. It's our 25-year guiding document for transportation investments in the county. It acknowledges local land use and matches transportation investments to local land use by visualizing how they can work together. We identify infrastructure projects and funding available to fund them. We show how the region can meet federal air quality standards, which is important to make sure our projects move forward, and take steps along with the state to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And it even involves state housing goals with the regional housing needs process. Slide. So it's a priority list of transportation projects. We developed that list in conjunction with the Public Works Department of each of our member agencies, including Escalon. It gives a regional lens to community growth plans and coordinates transportation with those, and ensures that we keep moving forward to receive state, federal, and allocates local funding as well. So it has four main components. Slide. It includes a policy element, a sustainable community strategy that we'll talk about briefly, financial element that identifies all future revenue, and then the list of projects that we talked about earlier. Slide. The Sustainable Community Strategy was new in somewhere around 2007, 2008, and what it mainly does, among other things, is show how we can assist the state in meeting greenhouse gas reduction goals. So we do some technical modeling with the plan to show how, if implemented, it would reduce greenhouse gases. Slide. All of that said, we always like to say and assure everyone that as a regional agency, SJCOG has no land use authority, and so this is but a visualization of a future development pattern and helps us match transportation investments. It also provides some help for general plan housing elements, which I'm sure your planning staff is hot into the process of updating the housing element for the city. Next slide. Foundational underpinnings, we do growth forecasts, and as you can see here, by 2050, we're looking at about 427,000 jobs across the region, as well as 313 and some change in total households by the year 2050. Public input is an important part of the planning process. Next slide, please. I'm advancing them, and I can't figure out why yours aren't advancing too. My apologies. In general, and this is a very brief synopsis, but there is support in the community for infilling some of our older commercial development areas, as well as providing new housing within these areas as well. Given the agricultural heritage of our region, there is strong support for limiting the consumption of farmland for new development. And slide again. Overall, the plan identifies around $12.5 billion in future expected revenue. We say reasonably expected revenue because it's a hard thing to pin down, and especially with new funding sources coming at the federal level through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. That money is split up among the projects, and as you can see from this pie chart, 37% goes solidly to maintenance and operations of our existing roadways. 26% goes to overall transit, all the transit services in the region. 22% into new roadway expansion, and about 3% into active transportation, and 12% into the overall rail services that serve San Joaquin County. Slide. As I mentioned earlier, the plan has technical elements to it, and it shows how, if implemented, would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 16%, which is important for us to meet this target because it maintains our eligibility for certain planning funding into the future, notably SB 1. Next slide. This is getting into the weeds just a little bit. I won't stay here very long, but In order for any capacity increasing projects to move forward, we have to show the feds how we meet the Clean Air Act standards, and this has to do with criteria pollutants. I'm sure you've heard of them. We talk about ozone or particulate matter. So this plan does indeed keep us in compliance with the Clean Air Act and allow those capacity projects to move forward. Slide. Some key strategies outside of transportation. Obviously, safety is a transportation issue and of primary importance. One of the biggest projects being proposed right now is the 99-120 interchange improvements that will help improve safety along 120 and on Highway 99. I'm sure everybody in the room has had the pleasure of sitting on 99 in that backup. So that's one of the priority projects to be moving forward. We're also exploring regional housing. The COG is currently looking at the feasibility of a trust fund to help with affordable housing in the region. This is a new area. We haven't spent a lot of time in housing, but as we all know, the housing crisis has gotten to the point where it needs all hands on deck. And so SJCOG has jumped into that as a way to support local agencies in housing provision. Obviously, there's a lot of projects in Escalon related to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. They've always competed quite well for that funding. And then we've also completed a fiber readiness study to look how the provision of broadband can increase both transit and transportation-related technologies to improve those systems, as well as supporting folks that are learning from home, working from home, and importantly, making sure that there's equity in the distribution of high-speed internet for folks to be able to do things like chime in to a city council meeting. Next slide. I'll highlight just a couple of quick future actions. We're looking to update the regional transportation plan, is implementing some of the projects that are of interest to the local community. The Stockton Mobility Collective is looking at ways to increase the uptake of electric vehicles through a car share program. This is currently in Stockton and is meant to serve the disadvantaged communities there, but as proof of concept, that pilot could roll out and be an answer also to rural communities looking to expand availability to those without cars. And it also has an electric pedal assist bike share program that would also be great to be able to roll out to other areas of the county. And then I talked about the fiber readiness plan already, and that will be to support local agency efforts to increase fiber readiness in their communities as well. So now I'll get to the meat of it. What does it mean for Escalon? Escalon grows a little slower than a lot of the communities in San Joaquin County. In the next 25 years, they're looking to increase population by about 400 people. I know Escalon is busy working on sewer planning as a way to help increase the probability of being able to build more housing in the area, and that's being conducted through regional early action program funding that SJCOG is also looking at. That funding being expanded, and that's partially what's funding the Regional Housing Trust Fund feasibility study. And I will say that what we heard from folks in Escalon during our public outreach showed that the community here has a lot of interest in focusing on maintaining and improving the current system, as well as concern about the impact of future development on agricultural land. These are some overall regional projects that are included in the plan, including the I-205 Managed Lanes project through Tracy, 99-120 Connector Project Phase 1A we talked about already. In Stockton, we're looking at separated bikeways in the North Stockton area, and then in San Joaquin County, Escalon-Balota Road, widening from 2 to 4 lanes. Which of course is directly adjacent to the city limits of Escalon. Then we're looking at some of these other projects, including the BNSF grade separation project, looking at grade separating the 120 and McHenry Avenue intersection where the at-grade crossing currently sits. My hairdresser is over here, and so I get caught at that one in the morning sometimes on my way over to get my hair done. And next one, the ACE expansion project, of course, and been hearing a little bit about that in the news, with it now being extended down to Merced. And they're expecting some of the information on that to go to Ripon by 2023, I believe it is, so something close. And then various transit projects and upgrades. Slide. Also, as I mentioned earlier, Escalon has been an advocate of quite a number of bicycle and pedestrian projects and competed very well in the active transportation program in previous cycles, as well as regional roadway improvements, Escalon Balota Road, Olray and McHenry, and the 120 Brennan Avenue intersection. So we are now in the, thank you. We're now in the draft plan. The draft plan, the regional transportation plan, was released for public comment back in early June. It has a 55-day public review period, which will go until August 1st. So we're here to encourage review of the plan and comments to SJCOG. We are getting a little late in the process. We've already, next slide. We've already had one public hearing. Next slide. One public hearing occurred already in June. There'll be a second one at the regular SJCOG Executive Committee meeting, which would be this Friday at noon. We encourage folks to either provide comments in writing, and if you would back up one slide, RTP at sjcog.org is the email to provide comments. They can also be mailed to the SJCOG offices at 555 East Weber Avenue in Stockton, or dropped off in person, and we're glad to talk to you if you'd just like to come by and chat with us about important projects or just comments on the overall transportation infrastructure in the area. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm glad to take any questions from either the council or the citizens in the audience.
Questions for, any questions over here? I got one question. The 99, I lived in LA for a long time, and I can remember the traffic on the 405. I never thought I'd see it on the 99. And it's just like it was in Southern California 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So what happened? Just too many people all of a sudden and not enough road space?
Well, I mean, that's one. We have been growing quite robustly over the last decade. There's been a lot more development along both 120 and 99, most notably in Manteca. Part of it has to do with just the dynamics of the roadway where the auxiliary lane comes on and you lose one on the other side. Just at the same time where all of the traffic from 120 is now merging into 99 as well. There are some schools of thought that when you improve roadways and make them wider, that people will tend to take more trips on that roadway. There's a lot of case studies that would argue both ways on that as to whether they're just taking the trip differently than they would have or if they're taking more trips. But yeah, there's quite a number of issues involved with that. You know, I will say the hope is with the improvements that we'll have 2 lanes off and 2 lanes on that will at least ease the weaving that happens that can tend to slow things down. And there's also a bit of an issue as the improvements, as you go over the bridge from San Joaquin to Stanislaus County, you know, where the lanes shift has happened, and so sometimes that'll cause a slowdown as well.
Does COG have any influence over Caltrans?
Well, you know, as far as working with Caltrans, I mean, I will say that's a two-way street. Certainly, SJCOG advocates for the projects that the region prioritizes, and we have a good working relationship with our district, which is District 10. And if there's a particular ask related to that working relationship with Caltrans, we certainly are open to hearing that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Is there any other questions? None? Anybody in the audience have any questions? Go ahead.
Stanislaus, yeah.
I can only speak a little bit to that project. I believe North County Corridor, maybe what you're talking about. It's Stanislaus County, so it would be our sister agency in Stanislaus County that would be handling that project. My understanding is there is a version of that that's still going forward, but the big bypass that was planned many years ago, that project is no longer planned.
Anyone else have any questions? Anyone online? Phones? Doesn't sound like it. I want to thank you for your time and thank you for your presentation. That was excellent.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see where you gotta leave us. We're in consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature and can act upon by one single action unless requested by an individual council member or by a member of the public for special consideration. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Yep, Mayor Alves, regarding item number 5, I will be abstaining from voting on check numbers 98669, 77313, and 77379.
Okay. I will accept a motion for the balance.
Make a motion to approve the balance?
All those in favor? I need a second. We have a motion already.
That's the motion.
Okay, second. Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Now, back to the, what was it, one item we have to.
Oh, no, I apologize. No, I was just abstaining for those
We're done.
particular
Good
checks.
enough.
Yep.
All right. All right. Let's move on to staff communications. No, wait a minute. Yeah, let's flip out here. Is it right?
Yeah.
Okay, got lucky. All right.
Communications.
Staff communications, staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
For you, we have the Treasurer's Report, Recreation Department Update, Development Services Report, Building Department Report, Public Works Department Report, Water Department Report, and Wastewater Treatment Plant Report, all for the month of June. If you have any questions on those reports.
Are there any questions for staff? Doesn't look like anybody up here. How about anyone in the audience have any questions for staff regarding the staff communications? Doesn't look like it. How about anybody online, on the phones? Doesn't look like it, so we can move forward.
And then I do have some staff communications. Some of you may or may not notice Chief Borges is with us for the month of July.
See him sneak in, yeah.
Yeah, he's serving as our interim chief until we finish that process for our new police chief. I also wanted to remind everyone at the podium and as well as in the public that today is the opening day for nomination period for the positions on the city council. We have 3 seats open for a 4-year term and 1 seat open for a 2-year term. Staff is available Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., closed for the lunch hour to pull papers. If you could call in advance and book an appointment, it's much easier, so that I know somebody's coming to be able to provide you that paperwork. And we will be updating and posting updates on our website for that information, because as you're pulling papers and running for candidacy, that information is public. And so as people submit papers, it will be updated on our website. We'll be creating a special page for elections. The closing date for that is August 12th. And then in the event that any members that are currently on the council decide not to run, we will keep a seat open for an additional 5 more days in case somebody else wants to apply. So then that will extend it out to the 17th. So if anybody has any questions regarding that, please feel free to give a call to City Hall, and we'll answer those questions for you. Another item I have an update on is parade. Park Feet Parade For Saturday, August 6th, we received the application form for the parade entry. I just need to find out how many members of the council will be able to attend. You don't have to answer me now, but if you can let me know before you leave, I'll go ahead and update this form and get that submitted. And then National Night Out is scheduled for Tuesday, August 2nd. We currently have 8 parties confirmed. Supervisor Rickman's office has also reached out. They're going to send somebody with us to attend and provide certificates to everybody that's providing a party or hosting a party in their block. And the deadline to host a party in your block is July 22nd. And so if you can contact City Hall if you're interested in having a block party that night, just let us know, and we'll help you get that scheduled. And that is all I have.
Very good.
I have, in conjunction with National Night Out, I believe we have one council member that has confirmed, and Sarah would like to know if the rest of you, as soon as you possibly, so we know who's coming, so that we can let her know, and I'll make sure that she's aware of that as well.
Thank you.
Also, if I might, I wanted to just bring a reminder forward. Anybody who has not submitted their survey for the recreation program, it is online, and we're going to be closing that survey in the next couple of weeks. So if you haven't participated, please do. We're interested in everybody's opinion on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff before we move on? Anyone in the audience have any questions before we move on? Anybody online? Questions before we move on? So we'll move on. Okay, that brings us down to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. The determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. Having said that, is there anyone in the audience this evening who'd like to come to the podium and discuss any item they have or anything on the agenda? Please come to the podium. Give us your name, please.
My name is Gabriel Albor. I'm coming on behalf, there's an Escalon case number 2350 regarding a property on 2128 Franklin Street.
Yes.
I was just kind of, I don't know how this works, but like I just kind of tell you what we.
Before you start, I think that might be something on the
It is, it's on the agenda.
Oh, it is? Oh,
It is on the agenda.
I'll just come back.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's on the agenda. I saw it somewhere in there. Okay, is there anyone else have anything you'd like? Oh, here comes Ann. Okay.
I'm Ann Shaddix, and I want to bring the senior housing back up, and I'm bringing it up for a reason. I want to go back over briefly what the seniors had originally asked for, because I'm hearing different things, and I think it's all boils down to terminology. So what we'd asked for is senior living apartments, not combined with residential housing, but a senior community. And we've asked that there be apartments, and we've suggested that they be 1 bedroom. However, so that there's some price variable, that there possibly be a couple studios, some 2 bedrooms, and maybe even a couple ADA ones approved as well. But the important thing is, when I brought the affordable housing guidelines as far as income to you, that was only an example of why people aren't qualifying. They're making just a few dollars too much, so we're caught in the middle. Can't go into affordable housing. We understand what we've asked you is market share apartments. We are not asking for affordable housing. We're asking for market share because affordable housing is just what you turn down. And that was never, ever our intent. We also completely understand that because of the laws, it may not be just for Escalon people. That could be, and the attorneys can address that at a later time, but that could be called discrimination. Is there a way around it? Oh, you bet. But as far as advertising it and putting it in writing, we understand that it has to be open. There will be a waiting list. We all know what a waiting list means. We're all on waiting lists someplace. So again, I'm asking you to keep going. Staff, I know it's taking your time, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate the work that you're putting into it. Many others are looking into it, and I'm asking you to keep senior housing alive until we've explored every possibility. And I believe there's a builder out there, and I believe it will happen. And this city then should be very proud of the fact that they not only have affordable housing, but they have market share housing for their seniors. And you will have made many seniors very happy. So please keep this on. Keep pushing forward on this issue.
All right, Ann, thank you very much. I think that's been the theme so far around here. We're all trying to find a solution. Doesn't seem to find one very easily, though. Okay, anybody else want to come up? Please give us your name.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kurt Danziger. I'm bringing up a subject you probably can see what I'm going to talk about. SSJID's water connection to Escalon. Haven't heard anything on it in months and months. And I've heard a lot of rumors. I've heard a lot of this and that, nothing in writing, nobody coming forward. I've asked Peter with SSJID to consider coming to these council meetings, giving us an update on what are hindering our operations to tie into this water system. And I'm not getting good information, to be honest with you. It's all over the place. And so a couple of suggestions I have. I think we need to get some quarterly updates and that are both joint from either staff and SSJID or just from SSJID if they are the ones holding up our project. Two, I understand that there's extra demands over what we've already proposed as plans, but they haven't put it in writing. Let's get them to commit and put it to writing so we know what we're up against and what cost is that going to be. We all kind of understand this is going to cost more now that they're objecting, but I've even heard rumors that they've designed the pipeline initially anyway, that there's volume problems and other things, so that may impact us. These are rumors, but we need to get rid of the rumors, and let's get down to the facts on what we're doing. The city, as you all know, came to the taxpayers and asked for a 218, asked for money to increase the water rates to pay for this. And we've been talking about it here for 3 years. Nothing's moving forward other than original plans going on. We've got $850,000 put away. We've got the funding for a loan structured, but now we have problems with design and getting this thing going. I think it's time that we address it. And one other suggestion, if SSJID is actually a hindrance here, a problem from whatever designs sent to them, why don't we get them to design it? You know, let's not let them stonewall us. If they've got a better idea, then let's see them do it. Other than that, it's our water. It doesn't matter what we do with it. We could pour it on the ground. It's not their problem. That's our water. We just have to pay for it. Anybody have any information they'd like to share with?
Can't really get into it, Kurt, it's not on the agenda.
I am not asking for any final things here. I'm just, have you heard anything?
Yeah, so Kurt, not to get into specifics, but just to respond to you, because I appreciate you bringing this stuff up and these big projects, these big ideas. It boils down to that, in my mind, SSJID doesn't want to do it.
Well, it's not up to Justice JID.
Well, it's a partnership. It would be a partnership. We would have to work together. Yes, it is our water, but we're working together. So I'm not going to, it's not on the agenda, but in my mind, what's happening is we've come with what we can, and we're not getting anything back.
You don't have it in writing of what you're not getting back. They need to put that in writing.
Yeah.
Tell us what it is that they are objecting to. All right, now it's hearsay. Put it in writing, let's see what it is, and then you can start working from there.
Well, I would say it comes down to it's not profitable for them. It's not a profitable business venture for them. It doesn't make sense to them, doesn't make sense to their employees, their leadership, and that's why something doesn't pencil out.
It's a little too late in the game for them to take that kind of attitude. They took our money. They took $1.5 million 20-something years ago to give us a connection. We paid for that. We've been sending the water to Tracy. We've put in a structure to collect funds for the loan. This isn't up to SSJID. At this point, they have to show us what they need to have for us to connect if what we've given them isn't good enough, period.
Staff will get...
Don't sit there and drop the ball.
Staff will get an update for you.
Okay. And maybe we have to go to the attorney at some point if they're still reticent, but down the road. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Kurt.
anyone else? Just give us your name, please.
Betty Bennett. So I'm still complaining about Belterra Estates. We finally got them to trim one block, and then I had to call Justin because they didn't do the other half of a block, So we're paying them big bucks, and they're not providing a service. I've been coming every meeting for 6 months about the sprinklers. They're still not fixed. We have plants that die, they just pull them out. They want to put rocks or some kind of something where the plants are. So I would like to know what's in our contract, what are they liable for, and what can we do to hold their feet to the fire? I met Justin out there, we went over all of it. He had a meeting with the guy that's responsible for it. They blocked it off, did the one block, then I had to call him and say they didn't do the other half a block. And so he's saying there's a lack of communication between us and them. And I think they want to mow, blow, and go. They park by my house at 8 o'clock. I come from the gym at 11, they're gone. So we're getting 3 hours a day, a week from them for $33,000 a year. Yes. And it says tree trimming. Our trees have been trimmed once in 20 years.
Yeah, we can have staff look into it,
So
and maybe we can have them get back.
There's got to be something we can hold them, their feet to, now it's hot and the sprinklers aren't working,
Sure.
more are dying.
Staff, can we look into this for them and get her an answer? And
Yeah.
set up a meeting and hopefully get it rectified instead of her have to come back every week and tell us, or every other week.
Yeah, I agree. This lady has showed up multiple times. She's provided us good information. She deserves, the rest of the people that are paying those fees deserve to know why the plants are dying. Why is there miscommunication? So I agree with that.
Tell them my message to them is I'm tired of hearing about the labor pains and it's time for them to show me the baby.
There you go. Thank you.
Show me the baby.
I like it. Very good. Anyone else?
My name's Don Bennett. I live in the same home that she lives in. I'm curious. The highway, the roads in front of my house, we pay for. People live in that tract. Why is that so? We're not a gated community.
What about it?
California Street.
Our development pays for that maintenance. That's a city road.
Brennan is.
We get a lot of traffic coming off of Brennan going through there.
Right. So what, let me understand the question. The question is, why is Brennan on the west side, or the west side, on the exterior of that development over there, being done at the expense of the tenant, of the owners of where you're at, the landowners. Is that the idea? Okay, I don't have the answer for that. Maybe staff can answer that for you.
I'd have to review the lighting and landscape.
What we can do is get that answer for you, Mr. Bennett.
Yeah.
But we can't do it right now, okay? But if you don't get an answer in a week, let me know. Okay, is there anyone else out there who'd like to comment on anything this evening? Please come to the podium, give us your name.
All right, so Cody Fowler, 1550 Judith Way. The contract between the City of Escalon and the Escalon Police Officers Association is now expired. It's my understanding that no agreement has been reached. Is that correct?
That'd be my assumption, yes.
These officers simply looking for a substantial pay increase in the first year to bring them in line with other surrounding agencies regarding pay. The requested 13% increase in the first year is absolutely critical to be able to retain officers, and yet will still not bring them up to the same level of pay as those agencies around us. Interestingly enough, somebody brought this up, that there was some significant pay increases that were certainly paid out or increased this year between the city manager and the finance director, who's, I guess, also serving as human resources. Is that correct? Is that you?
Increases?
I don't know. I'm asking a question because I didn't float this, but somebody else did. Apparently, there was a post online about it. But there certainly was some discrepancies between the chart that came out on July 1st, 2022, and the previous chart for the salary levels for the city of Escalon. I personally, I'd like clarification. This one dated 7/1 of 21 says that at step E that the city manager was making $122,601. I guess that's the maximum pay rate.
2021 of July.
I have the charts if you'd like to see them. But
2021 of July.
I'm sorry, 7/1 of 21 is the date of the previous chart.
Okay.
You
yeah,
guys just released one on July 1st. So the previous chart that's dated July 1st of 2021 mentions at step E, I guess, annual $822,601. Well, if I look at the same place on the current chart y'all released on the 1st of July this year, $178,543. Am I reading something wrong?
So, go ahead.
So just to be clear, there are some changes between one chart and the next.
Okay.
One of the issues is that I think you're relating to is that the city manager was on a contract that had a fixed amount. It was not on the salary schedule.
What was that fixed amount?
It now is on the salary schedule. I can't quote that, but you're welcome to contact the office, and I can go through it in more detail with you. But no, there were not significant increases in any of those.
And there wasn't for the finance director or HR administrator? According to these two charts are the same. Is that not your title, ma'am?
In the last fiscal year, the council approved a reorganization of the administration to take what was a position that was city manager, city clerk, HR director, finance, IT, and split it into two. That was budgeted in a prior fiscal year and was accomplished by the council. So
what's the difference in the pay?
So it may be confusing on the chart. In other words, there may have been a position on the chart that was not utilized in the past and has now been updated. So you and I can go through that if you'd like to contact City Hall. We'll make an appointment.
I mean, I can certainly, and I certainly will do that, but if you think I'm not going to bring it back here and make it a matter of public record, then you got another thing coming.
The chart was put on the website as a matter of public record.
You guys will not get the Escalon police officers a 13% pay raise in the first year. You guys apparently...
Can't speak to that.
It's open negotiations. You can't
The
talk about it.
contract is expired, so that becomes concerning to a citizen who, you know, lives here, grew up here. So.
Not the first time that's happened in this community.
Okay, sure, I get it. So tonight, you guys are going to discuss again, after hours, yes, that the fact that you're going to have a little sit-down and talk about what's going on with the EPOA's contract, yes?
Yeah, it's on the agenda, yes, sir.
So as a longtime standing resident of this town, I'm certainly voicing my opinion that I find some discrepancies in the pay chart, and I'm certainly going to get to the bottom of that. And I'm not necessarily faulting either one of you for getting a pay raise. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I do the same thing with my employer and so on. But it certainly looks like it's a sizable percentage of increase between the 2 years that occurred, and it is considerably larger than what the EPOA is asking, based on what I see on the chart. You guys are mandated to post this information, yes?
Yes, and also on the website as public information is the budget for last year. And if you look in there for positions, you'll find that there was no finance director
Okay.
in the prior, because it was a combined position. So there was no increase to that.
Now we made 2 separate positions, basically, is what you're saying.
Council approved through a prior budget to do a reorganization to pull those apart as they should be.
I think maybe the best idea would be, yeah, if you had a chance to talk with Claire, because with all due respect, like I say, there's all, finance and accounting-ese and stuff like that. But I think that, Cody, it might be useful if you get a chance to talk with Claire, and if she can explain this in such a way, and if you can distill it down into plain English, yeah, then come back at the next, meeting, and it might be easier to explain to everybody from there on out. But yeah, I would definitely take that opportunity.
I don't believe Facebook is why I'm here asking questions.
Sure.
But, so I certainly will sit down with you and look into that. It certainly looked a little strange the way the chart was produced. Go over that later. The bottom line is that we need to fix this thing with the police officers. You guys were presented with all the information. You guys were presented that it's 22% or more when you go 10 miles in any direction to be a police officer. These guys, they do the same job every single day. They are subject to the same abuses as any other town. Cops get shot at, they get beat up, they get all kinds of stuff. And we need to pay our officers here like we need to pay them. I was a little bit unnerved that you guys passed a budget on the last meeting, and you knew damn good and well what the Escalon Police Officers Association was asking for, and you just didn't care. You guys rubber stamped it. So I'm trying to figure out, do I really have a problem with the city managers, or are we starting to rubber stamp crazy stuff when we shouldn't at the city council level?
Okay.
But I'm going to get into it and look at it.
If you can make that meeting, I think that would enlighten you and
It very well might.
Yeah, and your time is up, and we'd like to move on. Okay? Thank you.
Gary Haskell. On that note, I believe it was the last general election, and we run a 2% bond or tax increase for the PD.
It was a 0.5%.
0.5%.
Or 0.5%.
Yes.
So, and that was turned down by the citizens of of Escalon.
That is correct.
Maybe it's time to revisit that, because I don't know how you voted or how any of you voted, but it was an increase that was turned down.
It was, what was it, $250,000, $300,000 estimated?
Yes.
It's something we could talk about.
Okay, but I don't know how long it takes to get a ballot measure back on the
I
ballot.
don't have time right now.
Don't have time right now. It's
Not to
something
make
we
this
might
one
consider
sound
in the future. And then these people can take the word out to the citizens and maybe get that passed.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, I don't know if you get the Modesto Bee or not, but if you look at the Modesto Bee, there was a good article today on, I think it was Sunday's paper actually, regarding Modesto and their police department. They're losing tons and tons of people for the same reasons. I mean, it's just not us, it's everywhere. Go ahead.
Good evening,
Your name,
Mr.
please?
Mayor. Sean Stroman.
Very good.
To Ms. Broderick's point, regarding the lack of performance by Grover Landscaping at Bellaterra, public contract code, California Public Contract Code typically comes with a termination for convenience cause. just something you might want to look into, because I know personally, based on from experience, a local landscaping company by the name of Swift Lawn and Garden would probably do a hell of a lot better job.
Oh,
So,
Been there, done that.
just saying.
I know I don't have the guys.
Just want to say that for the record. Really, I come before you tonight for a couple items. One is, so at the last council meeting, it was brought up about how our citizens will be dealt with, or how we're dealing with the pool closure. And I understand there's an agenda item. I'm not talking about the future of the pool. I'm talking about the problem right now. And so, while I understand a voucher program has been implemented, I guess I have a question for either Dominique or for Claire. How many vouchers have we given out as a result of that program?
We are actively engaging anybody who's interested. I'm not aware of anybody taking us up on it yet.
So the answer is 0.
As far as I know, the answer is 0.
Okay.
As of Thursday.
Okay, so, council, I think we're missing the mark here. I mentioned this last meeting, I'm gonna mention again tonight. Because the pool was not open, my family and other Escalon families had to go to Riverbank or to Oakdale to take swimming lessons. So I think the voucher program is great in concept, but it would have been great in concept if it was announced in May. Instead, families like mine had to shell out $80 to go to swimming lessons at Riverbank or Oakdale or to Ripon. So I'm asking council, not asking staff, to expand that for reimbursement for vouchers or for swimming lessons. Because right now, the way that it's just advertised is just for a daily voucher to go swimming.
I have a correction. I apologize. Staff has told me that they've handed out 15 to 20 of those.
Okay. So I'm asking council to open that up, maybe for a reimbursement for families like mine that actually had to go to an outside area to go to swimming lessons because our pool wasn't available. The other item that I would like to bring to your attention is Anna Mai's favorite topic, senior housing. So I reached out to a developer, and I presented the RFP to a developer, and I said, what's wrong with this? And the response that I got back, and Dominique, sorry we haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, but the number one thing that they mentioned is that at the attainable market rate that Ann has mentioned tonight and at previous meetings, there has to be a financial consideration by the city given to the developer. Land is not just an equitable concession, if you will. So waiver of fees. So I said, great, how much are you talking? And obviously it's depending on the size of the development, but in order for that 48-unit complex to fit that attainable level, a private developer would need the city to put up front between $5 and $7 million.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, I think that's the problem that we're facing. So I'm going to continue those conversations and see what we can do to make senior housing happen here. And I'll reserve the rest of my comments when we talk about the future of the pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come up this evening and speak? Anybody online would like to add this evening to anything? On the phones, internet? Anyone on council, any more comment? Gentlemen? Okay, I think we're done. Go ahead.
If I may,
You may.
Your Honor, Mayor, I'd like to take this moment to basically re-educate everybody about what the public comment period is supposed to be and how it's actually supposed to work. It's public comment, it's not public questions. Of course, you can phrase your comments, the public can have all types of questions, but because they're not on the agenda, they are not to be discussed. The law says the council members cannot discuss during public comment. It is your time for council to hear items, to hear your concerns, and maybe then just talk to staff after the meeting and say, well, this was brought up, can we put it on agenda, or can we get some answers? But, over the last year or so, this council wants to give you information. They're constrained, and it's my job to remind them and the public of how this public comment works. You could come up, you could give your 5 seconds, and I could tell you in other cities, the council can't say anything. And some cities even say, council members, please don't nod, or show that you have a preference one way or the other. I'm not saying to the council not to do that here. I'm just trying to get us back to what the law says is supposed to be happening during public comment. It's not a give me answers, staff and council members. It is, here are my concerns. I have questions or I have suggestions. Please address them, but they cannot be addressed at the meeting. So I thank you for your time and understanding to keep that in mind going forward, both public and to the council members.
And maybe you can explain to them there's another process. If they're serious about their issue and it's gotten to the point it's bugging them enough, they can come and put something on the agenda. Right. You might explain that, how that works to them too, so they have the option.
Sure. At a public hearing about a year ago or so, the council adopted a way for the public to put something on the item. There's a form. So on the agenda, if you actually want something on the agenda so it gets discussed, there's a form for that and a procedure for that. Please check with your city council member to do that. Here's another little last bit of information for the public. If you're looking for certain documents and things like that, there's a law that says you could request the documents from City Hall, and we're going to have to give them to you within a timeline and frame. So if there's certain documents that you want, instead of asking for it during public comment, you could come in anytime during normal hours. It's a public records request. Make your request, and then the city staff can help you get documents that you might want to review. Maybe that'll help everyone as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
That was very good. I think that helped everybody a little bit, kind of get an idea what's going on. And if you have questions in terms of procedures, hey, I'm available on the phone, call me. If I don't have an answer, I'll get it for you. But you should also feel like this meeting is just as much yours as it is ours. So, if you want more involvement, that's not a problem. Love to have it. Okay, we're going to move on. I think we're done here at the matters presented for the audience. I can't see, I've asked everybody involved and nobody's interested, so we're going to move on to administrative matters. Number 7, discussion requesting council consensus to take next steps in discussion with the Escalon Unified School District and the city regarding the future of the Escalon Community Pool staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So this agenda item request was submitted by Mayor Pro Tem Swift and seconded by Councilmember Bellinger. And so we have attached their item, which was on the agenda item request form, as well as a copy of the swimming pool facilities agreement from the year 2000. And then go ahead and discuss this item. And
all right, let's open this up to the council right now. Council members, anyone like to take the lead on this?
Yeah, I'll take the lead on it. And to be frank, to give all credit where credit's due, actually, I think this is bouncing off a suggestion from Mr. Stroman of the audience that I read on Facebook a couple weeks ago. And I think that it's timely, and I think it makes a lot of sense at this point. If you had a chance to read the contract, there is a procedure for, for the entities to how the pool is ran and how it should be ran. And we know that we're at the point now where now this pool isn't running. And so what this administrative matter item is just asking is if we'd like to see if we can get a council consensus to ask staff to reach out to the school board to have a joint workshop as to, okay, what are we going to do from here? I think that we owe that to the community. I think both entities owe that to the community at this point. And so that's all that we're asking tonight is just direct staff to reach out to the school board for a workshop on this matter.
Can I make a comment? Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead. Of course.
I'm 100% on board with that. I think this has to be addressed as soon as we can.
Yeah, we've reached out to the school board numerous times, and have we heard anything back?
Okay, anybody else?
We have a monthly meeting with them. This month, obviously, we did not have a meeting because school is out and the staffing's off this month, but we will end up meeting with them on our regular schedule in August. And they've always said that they would be honoring the existing contract on maintenance, and so, you know, and they're in full support of the city wanting to utilize the pool during our designated times to use it, and that they would continue to honor the agreement.
Oh, we have a different dynamic now, too. We also have a new individual sitting in the seat of the superintendent. So I'm not sure how the relationship will go from there on, but I'm excited to know that we have an opportunity maybe to meet with them. And there's other dynamics we have to discuss too, finances, and they have certain funding they've had available to them. I'd like to know whether or not they've considered using some of that for that purpose. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had suggested in the council to look at, for the council to look at the dispute resolution procedure, Section 9A of the actual contract, because the actual agreement, which is what's been discussed several times, is what controls. And until there is a little bit of leverage, a little bit of pressure on them to do something about it, I have a feeling you're going to continue to get the hi, we're open to ideas, but no actual progress. So I believe last time, Mayor, you actually are you finished Section 2 or started Section 2 of the dispute resolution, which is 2 city council members meet with 2 board members.
We did that.
Correct. So you could theoretically move on to the next and say, we're at an impasse, could we go to mediation as a way of forcing them into actually discussion? I think maybe that's a little premature. I think what we actually need to do is go back to them under that step 2A, 2 council members, 2 board members, and say, this is what we propose. We want to end this agreement. We want to work on a way to get out of the agreement because this pool obviously is not going to open anymore. You're not have enough money for it. We don't have enough money for it, and there's 8 years on the contract left. So let's because the dispute resolution procedure anticipates those 2 city council members and those 2 board members will come to some type of draft agreement to bring back to the city council and bring back to the school board as to how to amend and go forward. I think that's really how it's structured. What I'm sorry, Councilmember Swift, you called it like a roundtable or public?
A workshop, public workshop.
A workshop's great because it brings in the public participation of it, but it might not give you the information that you actually want to go ahead with them. But my point being is, public workshop or not, the next step after that would, I think, the 2 council members incite to this section, so you're putting pressure on them so they can't ignore it. Under Section 9A, our 2 council members want to meet with 2 board members to do this. This is our suggestion, and then go.
That's what we need. I think the problem has been, we didn't really define what it is, what we're looking for. I think if we would sit down as a group here and come up with a resolution, and then have 2 meet with 2 of theirs and go over that, I think we'd make some ground up. I think that's the problem. I don't think we've never really sat down and said point blank, this is what we're looking to do. We've danced around the issue of the pool being derelict and it's being upcaping and all that, but we've never addressed the fact, what are we going to do now?
Right, because as it sits, it's just going to stay in this condition until the end of this agreement. And then at the end of the agreement, there's supposed to be a buyout. I don't know. So we could, my suggestion would be, let's just advance this whole process.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
I don't know their intentions, though. What I'm trying to tell you is they haven't said anything to me other than that meeting, which left us kind of up in the air.
Right.
So I don't know whether or not they're thinking, wow, we're just going to let this thing dry up and go away, or they have another plan. I don't know those things. So when we approach them, we can suggest what we'd like to see happen, and then possibly they can respond with what they're willing to try to do. And then if it's not something we can all live with, then we go into the mitigation where we decide to terminate and move on.
Right. So yeah, that was just my point, was to put pressure on them, use this clause to get them to actually state what they want to do.
No, I like that. Yeah.
And I think that they're cognizant that that clause is there as well. I think that, again, timing-wise, like the mayor suggested, we are in a spot now with the new administration coming in. And so there might be an opportunity to, if, again, the two groups in totality. And I'll address the issue about two at a time. We do go to the school board, city staff meetings, we two at a time, and it's been like that for a while. And so I think that in terms of getting this out in the open, we all know who the school board members are. They all know who we are. We all say hi all the time to each other and all that good stuff. But having this workshop as an opportunity to just sit down and look at each other, okay, guys, we're in this boat together. This is a community asset that now is in jeopardy. What do we want to do together? And the reason I'd like to throw this in as an intermediary step in that process is because if we can reach some kind of just an informal discussion or informal way that this whole direction is heading, then if we can avoid the next steps that you're talking about, where you're talking about mediation, stuff like that, that'd be nice to do at this point. And that's the reason I'm suggesting to have this workshop. Before you get to those other steps, now we're talking about mediation, we're talking about, that kind of stuff.
Can I make a comment? So I sat in on a school board meeting with the former superintendent and the head of maintenance, and they don't want the pool. They don't want to maintain the pool. They don't want to pay for the pool. They'd be happy right now filling that thing in with dirt. I guarantee you. They don't want to put up the money. They hold the majority stake in this contract. They are the ones, this is the school board, right? They deal with all of the schools, the elementary schools, the junior high, the high school. These are the people who use the pool. Nobody uses the pool. It's open for 3 weeks a year. It was built incorrectly back in the day, so we can't utilize it for sports. The whole thing has been a disaster. I guarantee you that the school board would be fine ending this contract and saying, you know what, we're going to dissolve it, fill this thing in with dirt, and be done with it. The city will be out of it, and we'll be out of it. We don't, the workshop is, you know what, you're going to have people that come up and like Sean and says, we don't have a pool, we don't have a community pool. That is a benefit to a community that costs the city and costs the, in this situation, the school district, a ton of money. Now, it's possible we fill the pool in with dirt and we still provide a voucher program for people to go to other pools to have swim lessons, and then it's still provided. But I'm going to tell you right now, the school district, the reason we have heard nothing from them, and they're very well aware of this situation, is that they don't want the pool either. They don't want to pay for it, and they're not going to pay for it, and we're not going to pay for it, and we don't have the money. That's what this is going to come down to. The pool is done. The ultimate thing that's going to happen is we're going to fill it in with dirt, and we should dissolve the contract, and we should move on.
Well, if they want to do that, then that's okay. Then let them explain that at a public forum. And by the way, they might have a very good rationale on their end, and I think therefore, if we have it at a workshop, and you have the public invited to the workshop, then if they can have a very good logical explanation as to why, listen, yeah, we do want to be out of this, then fine, that's good too, because that's going to educate people. And there's nothing wrong with that too. But I think that you create that environment so that both us and them are there, so that we can actually discuss, what are you guys really feeling about this?
So what are you suggesting is that we have a community meeting, is that what you're asking for?
What I'd like to see, what Councilmember Bellinger would like to see, is we reach out to staff, ask staff to reach out to the school board to say we would like to have a joint workshop, public workshop, regarding the future of the pool, and get their feelings, get where they're coming from, get where we're coming from. Okay, we know where the public's coming from, all right? But still, we're the ones that have to make a call on this. And so I think that it's going to be the best if we can make a call together and do this in a public forum. And now, when I say make a call, I'm not talking about making some resolution motion again. When you have public workshops, and many of you have been to workshops, regardless of what the subject is, and after a while, you can start to see the direction that the subject of the workshop is going to be going in. And that's the purpose of a workshop. So we're not going to be making any hard, fast decisions at that workshop. But at least we're going to know pretty much what direction both of these entities do we need to be going in.
Can I comment that real quick? Mm-hmm. So we know the direction. We don't want to pay for it. We don't have the money. The school district doesn't want to pay for it. They don't have the money. We haven't heard anything from them. If you have a public workshop, you're going to have the public that shows up and says, we want the pool. We want to be able to do swim lessons and play and all this stuff. But it's not their decision, because even if they show up in force and say, we want the pool, we can't pay for it. The school district can't pay for it. I mean, this could be handled, you know, frankly, in a non-public forum, because the same result is gonna happen.
I'd like to say something just real quick. I think the reason that I supported the idea of the workshop is that there's been months of back and forth. We thought we were going one direction, then we heard something like, wait, we can possibly open it? We've gone back and forth for months, not knowing.
Long time.
We need everybody in the one room to speak about the topic. We know we've got issues with the pool, but I think it's salvageable. How much is that salvage gonna cost, and what are we gonna get out of that, and how long would it last? If we put in X amount of dollars to get rid of the mold, clean out the sand filters, and do all the things that the gentleman from Ripon thought we needed to do, minor things like that, that we can get that thing quote-unquote operational again, how much is it for each party involved to do that? And is that something that they may be agreeable to? I don't know, but the back and forth, waiting for the next meeting, it's gonna take us 12 months to get to a resolution on this. If we can get everybody in the room and move in a direction, we can make some progress maybe.
If I may, Councilmember Bellinger, that had already been done. So this has all started because the school district hired a consultant to figure out how much it's gonna cost to get the pool up to speed, and it was over.
That was a wish list of what they wanted.
And then
You know that.
and then me personally, I went back and I asked the consultant to give us the bare minimum, and that came back before this council and was still, and was discussed. So I'm just presenting the information that we might have forgot of, which is that stuff has already been presented.
But the company that we worked with is different than the gentleman that said we could have used that if we didn't have black mold. To get rid of the black mold is not the $1 million or whatever they wanted for their list of what their bare minimum was.
And in addition to that.
So there's a difference there if we had somebody else working on this project, I think.
And in addition to that, two things. Now, what spawned this specific, item now is, talking with Justin Day, and he had talked with John Lyle with the school district, about another couple of options. Again, and these options chiefly are concerned with the black algae issue, okay? And there are newer options and they're less costly options. I would also suggest that there's, Ripon Aquatics is willing to come in and be able to be a participant in this meeting as well. They operate all the pools for the city of Ripon as well as the high school for Ripon. And so try to get their input on this situation too. I just think that we owe the public this meeting at this point with both bodies together. And if the decision between everybody is that, what, this is it and this is it, then fine, we proceed with the remediation process. But if we can find out some solution in the meantime that both sides are palatable with together, I think we need to do that.
Okay, let's move this forward. Do we have to have a motion for this?
First out, no, but we need a first public comment since it is on the agenda.
That's fine.
And then the council could take whatever action or no action that they want to take.
Okay,
Can I
very
say
good.
one thing?
Sure, of course.
My concern, just listening to this and kind of being there in a couple of meetings and stuff, is where do we, say we hypothetically fix it, then what's next as far as getting it open to where it's actually being utilized the way it's supposed to be utilized? So the big concern I look at is not necessarily right now, but what's the end game there? Are we looking to, if it's a public pool, it's something that should be used by the public as often as it can possibly be used, and structure these kind of programs that allow it to be paid for, like swimming meets, that kind of stuff. And so do we take it off campus? In my mind, it's either you cut bait and you try to move this thing off campus, or you have to fix it together in a partnership and then still come up with a solution for how to best utilize it in the future.
And those are good points, and that's clearly something that you'd want to be bringing up at a workshop. Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, let's move up public hearing. It's open. Please come to the podium and give us your opinions on the matter, if you have one. And your name.
Good evening, Sherry Hill. I read this, and quite frankly, I love you all. Thank you for volunteering. You serve your time. I appreciate you. So please don't anybody take this personal. Please follow the advice of your attorney tonight. We need to sever this. The school has the pool from August to June. There's no way for our community to be able to use it, and obviously they've reneged. It's in the shape it's in if they've had control over it for 10 months out of the year. Please don't have a workshop. We're already in this process, so just sever it, cut it off, and then have a community pool. Have a City of Escalon pool that can be open 10 months out of the year.
Right.
That can support itself, that we can hire American Red Cross to do the training like they used to do, and they'll pay to use the facility. And you can have swimming lessons that pay for the facility. You can have public swim 7 days a week, every afternoon, evenings, families, whatever, and it will pay for itself. But can we please get away from the school that has control and is not doing, they're already broke the contract. So sever it. Okay, please, sever it, move on, and let the community come forward. I don't know if we have to have fundraisers and build our own pool, but we can do it. I mean, I personally wouldn't use a public pool. Not my thing. But I would love to see our children do it, and I would be happy to be involved in raising money for it and having it part of Escalon City, not in partnership with a partner that doesn't want to be a partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Evening again, Council. Sean Stroman. Before I begin my comments, I just have a question. What is the real reason why the pool is not open today?
Well, if you took a walk through the pool like we did, you'd recognize the fact that there's a lot of deficiencies. There would be health hazards, and we don't want the liability because of that. They had the black mold issue, and they had other issues with the pool. Inside the room itself, they had
Lifeguards as well.
we didn't have enough lifeguards and other things like that. Basically, I don't think there was ever an intention to have that thing open this year.
Okay, but Councilman Swift went out and found the lifeguards, found the training program.
You didn't get enough.
I disagree. We had 5 lifeguards who were in the middle of their Red Cross cert, which means that they were all Red Cross certified. Okay, Ribbon Aquatics had plenty of lifeguards. In fact, they had an excess of lifeguards. So they were willing to give us 2 or 3 depending on the situation. And the goal would try to be that you would open up the pool for a limited time, possibly 1 to 5 every afternoon, or 12 to 6, 4 days a week or something like that. So the gentleman with Ribbon Aquatics also offered 2 things. Number 1, to give our lifeguards who were applying a primer refresher as to what to look for and, procedures and all that good stuff, okay? He also offered to go ahead and just take a look at our equipment, the things that we had, the safety equipment, to make sure that we were up to speed with all of that, okay? Because obviously, he wanted to see this happen as well.
Correct.
So he goes out there to take a look at the equipment. A member from the Public Works Department, opened up the gate, he came out there, and he said, you know what, the equipment, fantastic. Most of the black mold, the black algae, not an issue. But then when he said, Robert, there's 2 spots on the bottom of that pool on that deep end that are sizable. And that combined with, the pool on your typical day, you've got riffles on top of it. And, again, with the lifeguard situation, even if you had enough lifeguards, could they see, and would they be able to see a body at the bottom of that? And he said, frankly, personally, these are his words, if it were my pool, I wouldn't worry about it. Let's swim. But if this is a community pool with the liability, and you put any lifeguard in that situation, could they see the bottom of that pool with confidence, a body at the bottom of the pool with a couple of those black spot areas? And he couldn't say it with confidence that they could. And so, frankly, he suggested I wouldn't do it.
So the real
And
issue,
that's what it was.
real issue is the black algae, not
Yes.
the lifeguard situation.
No. Now, having said that, the lifeguard situation, like I say, we had a bare minimum. We would have needed their help, okay? And so, and to be honest with you, a couple of these lifeguards have actually gone out, now they're doing private lessons, which is fantastic for them. But it was a combination of, again, how much liability do you want to take, knowing that you've got a couple spots in that bottom of that pool, and can a typical lifeguard see a body in those two particular spots? And he just did not, he said, I don't have the confidence to suggest, yeah, go with it because of that.
Okay. So,
Well, just a minute. First of all, we were never informed that we had adequate amount of lifeguards ever.
Councilman Swift mentioned that at the
A
last.
couple of meetings ago, yeah.
Well, and it was never confirmed. I never heard
yeah.
from our staff that we had the right number of staff to run that. Plus, you need, how many did you actually need?
We need a minimum of 8 lifeguards.
And who else?
8 lifeguards and 1 supervisor at minimum. And we
What was
only
the
have
other
5
person?
applications.
What was the other person they needed besides that? There was one other person.
1 lead at minimum, and then they're looking for 1 supervisor, somebody.
Yeah, supervisor
Anyway,
too.
I never heard of anything that we'd met all that criteria to begin with. Now, we may have had some lifeguards collected up, and he may have had great advice from somebody, but it never came together in a way that nobody felt good about moving forward. And that's why we're at where we're at right now, because there was not enough confidence in what we knew to move forward.
But I'll say with extreme confidence, the reason ultimately is when this person, who this is what they do for a living, tells me that, you know, I just don't know if I would do it, Robert, under these circumstances with those 2 spots down there.
So obviously, my point of all of this was there's even internal confusion as to why the pool's not open.
I don't know, I'm not really confused about it.
But the community is confused, that's my point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
That's why.
when Ms. Romo says there's not enough lifeguards in Escalon Times, Councilman Swift saying it's black algae, there's 50 different stories going around. And so we look to you guys as the leaders of this community to stand up and make a statement and say,
Right.
this is what we need. Here's my point. As a result of the last meeting, I reached out to a member of the school board. And I said, what's the deal? I can read you verbatim, but he mentioned some points that are pretty poignant that I would like to note into the record. But before I say that, my suggestion that I brought up about a public workshop is not just related to the pool. I feel like the previous superintendent did a lot of things that fractured the relationship between the city and the school district, i.e. locking fences, keeping our rec programs out of those areas. So I feel my suggestion for the workshop was, now that the new superintendent is in, to try to have a workshop or a town hall meeting to figure out how we bridge that gap. That was my point. And if we decide to bulldoze the pool and follow Ms. Hill's suggestion and build a community pool, let's do it. But let me just read you this statement. So what I said to him was that I know that there were 3 council members that tried to resolve this to get the pool open. And Mr. Costa threw his hands up and just said, kind of like, oh, well. I said, people are pissed off, and rightfully so. Isn't EUSD in default of the agreement that was made? Here's his response, and I wish that this individual to remain anonymous. Well, you are correct that there were 3 city council members in a meeting last month. But my question is, where was their concern in March when it was discussed with the school district and city staff in our meeting? The city knew in March it was an issue. They felt they wouldn't be able to staff the pool due to trouble getting lifeguards in the past. Now, it is June, and the city has known for several months that there's a problem. The city and the school district have met several times. We have city council members. Oh, but by the way, most city council members choose not to attend these meetings. Listen, I'm not going to blame anyone. This has been a long-standing issue with the city and the school district. Both staffs came under the agreement early in the spring that the pool would not open. Now we're dealing with the fallout. We need to start solving the problem instead of blaming each other. get a third party to repair, and keep maintenance and both parties equally split the cost. It's the simplest, easiest way. Oh, and by the way, the school district improved the pool pump and filter system 5 years ago and asked the city to pay their portion. Can you guess what the answer was? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't yes. So as the leaders of this community, I'm asking you guys to work together with the school district, not just on the pool, on access to the rec facilities. Escalon is a small town. Let's get it back to the small town feel, people working together. They disagree, but having common decency. That's all I'm asking.
Okey dokey. Anyone else? Anyone online? Anyone on the phones? Bring it back to council. Council, what do you want to do? We got, come up, sure. We got time for it.
Why don't we find out how the community feels about it?
That's what Mr. Swift is suggesting.
You know, we got a pool we don't use, and you know, I never had a pool when I grew up. But
I don't have a pool.
that has nothing to do with this, but why don't we see how the people feel about it? You know, mail them out a voucher or something, or put it in the newspaper.
Those are all
The
good.
problems you're having with it, should we keep it or should we not keep it? Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is
Okay.
it is part of the survey that's out that we're asking for participation in.
Okay, thank you. It is on a survey already, Mr. Bennett. So anyone else like to say anything before we move on? All right, we're going to come back to the council. We're going to close the input. We've already tried the phone lines, everybody else, so council, what's your wishes?
Will this merely require a consensus?
For,
Just to direct staff to reach out to see if the school board is interested in a public workshop on this issue?
Yeah. Yes.
Would a consensus be adequate?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we should move directly to terminating the contract and being done with this thing. That would be my motion.
Do we have a second for Councilman Croninge's recommendation?
You're going to get there eventually, guys.
Not hearing a second. Fails. Is there any other motions?
No, well, again, if all we need is a consensus to direct staff to reach out to the school board regarding a public workshop on this, that's all that we're asking for
So
tonight.
what you're asking for, Councilman Swift, is that you're asking that our staff goes to theirs and tries to see if there is a common interest in bringing to the public an open debate.
Yes.
We're looking at towards more a workshop than a debate, but yeah.
It's a debate, believe me. Okay, so, having said that, do we have a consensus for Councilman Swift or?
You have my agreement for it?
We have one here, two,
Two here.
three. Okay, you have enough.
So I will follow up with the new superintendent and move forward on.
I'd like to meet the man. I had never met him.
Yeah.
I'll follow up with you via email because we're working with their board and our board, so there's potentially a minimum of 10 people that would need to be in attendance at that meeting, and so it's going to take some coordination.
In terms of council members making those meetings, we've had different council members show up, and then some of us more than others. But it's like everything else, there's plenty to do, it's not like you hone in on one thing. So, we had plenty of input from our other council members. I don't feel like any one person has to be there all the time. So, and I think there is a new dawn here. I think the new superintendent might be a little more amendable to things than the previous one might have not been. We'll find out, and I think it'll be fine. And then, once we get a clearer picture of what's going on, then we can revisit what Mark has suggested, and maybe move on from there, and then ultimately end up where Peter says we're going. But you know what? Due process. It's not going to hurt anything. Let it go. All right. Let's move on to the next item. That was a good debate anyway. That was fun. Okay, moving on. We're down here. Discussion, proposed draft deferred utilities agreement to be made between the city of Escalon and Gray Gates, Western Steel Erectors, Inc., Weldway Steel Fabrication, Inc. Staff.
By the way, first of all, probably at this time, I probably ought to say I probably ought to leave the room due to conflict of interest issues, and so I will do so.
All right.
Can you please shut the door behind you?
All right.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. So we have some background and discussion. This item, or the beginning of this item, was presented to council at the June 13th meeting to move forward on a draft agreement. Mr. Yates had submitted a draft agreement. Staff received, reviewed, and went over the proposed draft agreement, adding standard conditions that apply, that would typically apply to deferred utility agreements, given the information we have on the project. And the staff report does indicate several items that both staff and Mr. Yates disagree on, and that's up to council discretion. And so those items are indicated. And if you want to discuss or go over them individually, we did provide a red-lined version of the agreement.
Well, I'd like to start, if it's okay with staff, I'd like to have Mr. Yates come up and give us his version of what's going on, so we can get that out of the way. And then we can go from there. Thank you.
Good evening. As far as what's going on, I know we turned in an agreement. They redlined it. We came back, Dominic gave us 24 hours to make our comments on the agreement. We did that. There's an agreement with green comments on it. We are in disagreement with a few things, but I think that we're close enough that we can work things out. Currently, we are under contract, which is dependent on the deferred agreement right now. So we do have a signed contract.
Excuse me, you have a signed contract with who?
With the owner of the property.
Oh, for your purchase property?
Correct.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So there are some particulars to go through. Once the agreement is I guess, ratified between both parties, then it would be put into a separate entity to be formed. It wouldn't be under my name or the company's name. So I didn't want to form an entity until we come to an agreement. So that's one of the things I know was mentioned, to bring in the two companies' names into the agreement, which we don't agree with. There is another time frame, 5-year minimum. We want a 5-year minimum after investing the money into the property. It's going to take, it's the purchase price plus getting the facility up and running, putting the septic system in, and we'd like a minimum of 5 years being there before we need to tie into the utilities.
I'm not sure if I understand. You went 5 years from the point you buy the property, or 5 years from the point you finish your building your property, project? Which is it? I'm not sure.
I prefer the latter.
But what is it you're asking for?
I'm asking for 5 years from purchase.
Okay, from purchase to do the infrastructure connection.
From the time the infrastructure is brought up to the south side of the railroad tracks, and there's another developer in there.
Okay, so, all right, let me get this straight here. The condition you're hoping to get us to agree to is that once the line is brought to Brennan all the way to the new housing project that's supposed to happen, and you've gotten your project signed, you want a 5-year period in that, in order to, and another person to be involved with you, and after 5 years, to then move forward in connecting.
That is correct.
I got it right?
Yep.
A miracle. All right, so now I understand it. Does everybody else understand it? Everybody here good? Everybody got it?
Don't think it's that easy.
Well, I mean, but you understood what I did say?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, it was hard enough for me to figure out. Okay, so now we're on the same page. Where do we have a problem?
The 5 years was not agreed to by the city.
What did the city propose?
Might have it in front of her, but
Dominic, what did we propose?
So the,
Page 122 of the packet has the red line version.
Okay, and that is?
And if I could take just a brief step back, at the last hearing, this was the concern, was how to work on what would be the triggering event.
Right.
So that's really what we're talking about right now, is the triggering event. However, I do want to make sure the council understands Mr. Yates is not indicating, and correct me if I'm wrong, has no intention of himself bringing the utilities up to the specific plan. What Mr. Yates is saying is I'll connect to the city utilities once it comes out here. And I think there was a little confusion with that about last time, so I want to make sure it's clear here, because the city indicates the city isn't going to spend the money to create this whole line all the way out. That's why nothing's happened so far, right? The city's not doing it. The city says the developer, whoever that's going to be, actually has to pay for that extension to go all the way out to the specific plan.
From the other side of the road.
Right, and so Mr. Yates is not indicating whatsoever that he's going to be doing that. He's saying, I'm gonna wait, I'll be on septic and well water until somebody, and according to the draft agreement, it's either the city or another developer brings that line up. So
I thought he just stated that he would do it in 5 years if it was him and someone else.
he will connect once it's brought over within he wants.
When he says brought over, could we have the language explained? Does it mean brought over beyond the roadway or to his property?
Well, I don't want to speak for you, so why don't you clarify what you would and would not do? Because I think I understand it, but I don't want to put.
The question is, he's stating that you are indicating that you will connect when it's brought to your property, and that's when you'll connect, not once it's brought across the street. Because according to the city has our standards where the developer will take it from the other side, under the tracks, all the way to your place.
Well, I would be in agreement if the Florsheim development brought it up to the south side of the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Bring it across the tracks, under the road, into the property. But it has to go through other properties before it gets to my property. So there would need to be another developer in there, whether I develop the rest of the property, because I only need about half of the acreage. If I decide to develop it, then it would be up to me to bring it over. Or if there's another developer that came in there, we would have to split the cost. There's still other things that need to be worked out, because there's, I think, 176 acres there, right? So the total cost to bring it over would need to be divided between everybody when they develop their properties, right? So it'd be a cost per acre, a cost per development, or something, right? Because we would bear all that cost up front, but we would need to be reimbursed, and there should be no timeline on that reimbursement from any other developers.
Right.
Right, that's normally how it works.
That's a developer agreement of some sort, right?
That's how it works normally. The person like yourself has a development, you're bringing the utility to you. Everyone who connects from that point on has to reimburse you. That is correct. That's how we've always done our development agreements.
And that's what's not going to happen here with this agreement. That's not going to happen.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Well, because the developer's you're not going to bring it all the way over.
I'm going to bring it, once there is a development, to the corner of my property, right?
Right, so once the other developer, whoever this be, whenever this be, brings that line up to the specific plan, then he'll tie in.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
I said if there's another developer that comes in, or I develop the rest of the property, I will bring it over to the corner. That's what I said.
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
My understanding from what you're saying is that you basically have, once there's another developer that's willing to help you, I guess, defray the costs or whatever it is.
Bear some of the burden.
Bear some of the burden. At that point, then you're going to basically help bring that in, is what you're saying.
Up to the property that I'm purchasing, right?
Yeah.
So it would have to go through the property to the south, because it would have to go through there, and then up into our property. But there's also property to the north that developer would have to pay to take it further north.
Beyond you.
Beyond me, yeah.
Yeah, that's not that's not your problem.
Right, so I'm agreeable to that.
The only issue I think they're trying to get at is that who's going to bring it under the tracks over to your house, your place? That's what the issue is here. And you're saying that you'll take it from what point to your place is what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, so I'll say it one more time.
Okay.
South of the railroad tracks.
Yes, sir.
Florsheim has to bring it up to there, correct?
Yes, sir.
After that point, if there's another developer that goes in there, or I develop the rest of the property, I will take it under the track, under the road, into the corner of my property.
If you develop the rest of your property. So you have 39 acres, and you're proposed to develop half of that? Roughly?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay. So if I understand to hear this correctly, you will develop your property, and you'll bring that line all the way to your property if you develop more than half.
Correct.
So in the meantime, you'll be on a septic. So what triggers you leaving the septic to the line is you're saying there has to be another developer in between that time that will develop it to the point it comes to your property.
Correct.
So that's the missing link. We need that additional individual in order to solidify the agreement, because at this point, we don't have one. What we have is, you're gonna do your development, and you're gonna wait for that line to come to you before you connect it, and you're asking for a 5-year period. Am I right on that?
Well, not entirely,
Okay,
because I'm not
good.
waiting until it comes to me. I'm waiting, it should be up to the south side of the track. And then when
Right.
there's a developer,
Right. But if there is no, what I'm trying to get at, and I'm not trying to be cute here, I'm just trying to get this straight.
Right.
Okay, you're saying, once it's to the track, you're hoping another developer's gonna bring it over to you, and then once it's over there, you'll connect to your property. But there's that missing link in the middle, we're waiting for somebody to step up who will be a new developer, is that right?
but this has been on the plans since 2007, right? There has been no development out there.
None,
This is-
zero.
This is a start to get it
That's
going,
correct.
right? So once we start developing, then there should be more development going. There's nothing there now, right?
No, listen,
I'm just stating,
Yeah,
look,
yeah, yeah.
there's nothing there, right? We
Right.
could be kick-starting it or not.
Correct.
There's no business development. I think the city council and the planning should be inviting new business into the city, right? You don't have the money for to tie it in. The way the plan is written is the developer. I don't have the money to bring it in within.
We don't even know what it's gonna cost.
Right.
So why don't we find that out? That'd be nice to know. Because here's the deal, I have talked to the city about this, and I'll be honest with you, if we could afford to connect it, I'd rather connect it and have it there, and have everybody pay up front and boom, pay to connect. Because it would just save a lot of headaches, because what we're doing now is we're taking some extraordinary steps to accommodate the development, which, by the way, we're in favor of. But at the same time, it has pitfalls, and we're just trying to make sure we don't make a mess of this thing. That's all we're trying to do.
And I understand that.
Okay.
But what's the pitfalls? Point
Well,
out
the pitfalls are, when you develop your property, we're gonna be waiting for somebody in between that time to get that other thing done in the middle, across underneath the track. And like you said, there has been zero, if any, interest at all of that happening.
And that's part of the reason there's been nothing happening, because of the cost for one person to go in there and bring it underneath the track, so.
Absolutely.
I have a couple questions. One is, so if the housing developer, we get the logistical service review complete, they move forward with that, they truncate it, and they get it there, let's say it's a year from now, you're working on your property and you get it developed, you say it's gonna take you 2. Because obviously they gotta get it truncated immediately if they're gonna put those houses in. It's part of the first part, the step they're gonna do there. From the point they put it at the tracks, you want a minimum of 5 years before you join another developer to truncate underneath and join to your facility. If a developer comes 2 years after that and is ahead of your 5-year and they have no services, where does that leave us? I'm not saying it's gonna happen, I'm just asking a what-if connection on how this agreement's written. If another developer comes in, they see you starting to build and somebody's got the idea they like the economy, they like what they do, they're gonna build. We're not at that 5-year point that you're asking for forgiveness on before you start to join the group, if you will. How's that gentleman's project gonna go if he's not connected to service?
It's going to do the exact same thing Mr. Yates did and come here and ask for a deferral.
That's one of my concerns for the next deal. I'm not sure it'll happen, but tragedy strikes on a regular basis, it seems, when you do things, and it becomes chaos like that, and I'm trying to avoid that in an agreement. I don't know how to do that. That's why I'm asking questions, and how that would work.
I mean, that's a legitimate question.
Because if you're a business, obviously, you're buying the land for X amount, you're building a building. I don't know what that's gonna do to your business or strap and how much that's worth, but if you're saying you need 5 years to recover from the build, and someone else is going in and it triggers something to go, you're in a non-performance situation, and that puts you in a bad spot. I don't wanna do that to you. I wanna figure out so everybody's on board with the same agreement, so it makes sense for everybody, and we're not putting you into bankruptcy or extending credit that you don't have in that scenario. So I wanna make sure we're all covered on all bases.
Well, the 5 years
those are
does
my-
not put me in non-performance or non-performance if the 5 years is in there. So you're saying if it happens before the 5 years.
Right, that's correct. So if another developer bounces in 2 years after, he sees the housing development in, he sees you start moving dirt, and someone's like, I've been eyeing that spot, someone else is going in, let's do this. And we're 2 years in, where does that leave his development?
Where to lose his.
And then we're putting another well in, another septic, or?
What does that happen to you, though?
I mean, I don't wanna put you in the bind.
What I'm trying to get at is, your point is a very good point. What I'm trying to understand is, what he's trying to say, I think if I understand it correctly, is that you have a 5-year agreement, we let you have the subject, but somebody comes in earlier and develops, would that trigger you connecting sooner? I think that's what he was asking.
Yeah, and it should.
Well, it would trigger if the 5 years wasn't in here. If the 5 years is in.
Okay, so you're saying no matter what, 5 years. So if somebody comes in prior to that, you're still not gonna connect until the 5-year period.
Okay, where would they would go on the south side of me, right? So,
I don't know.
well,
They could buy the property up by the railroad tracks.
But
You know,
that-
I need to tie in.
That's what he's saying. He wants a minimum 5 years to not be able to tie in. So when we originally drafted it, which is what the part that we're disagreeing about, I had an earlier of one of these triggering events, and one of the triggering events was the approval of another developer coming in, and that would be, giving 1-year timeline. If another developer comes in, then he has a year to connect in. And I understand, excuse me, Mr. Yates is saying, but I just spent all this money on the sewer infrastructure, so I want at least 5 years grace. And that's the rub in this particular provision that we're discussing right now.
I get it.
I understand your point and your point, but to my point, it's been sitting there for 17 years and nothing's happened.
On the off chance that that happened, what is your stance on that? Like the scenario of something happening prior to 5 years? Would you be willing to renegotiate that or like?
I would be willing to.
Or can you potentially?
I would be willing to renegotiate because I understand that. That puts that developer in a little bit of a different position, right? So if I was in his position, I would want some help with the cost. I know that's, that would be a different legal document, right?
I think that's why we should do that up front, not worry about renegotiation, and it makes sense to everybody right now.
Right.
Would be my case in that scenario. If there was a trigger event, it's obligation at that point.
There still needs to be a time frame, whether, it's 5 years or 2 years or whatever, and I know you had the.
So we had basically 1 year if there was another developer to come in. Is 2 years, is that more of a?
That would be more manageable.
Right.
I think that's a fair compromise, and I think that that would be provided the new developer coming in was for real. I mean, was gonna make that, in other words.
That would be, sorry for interrupting, Ed, but that would be maybe a permit time, 2 years from permit time, or, not just, hey, I want to build 2 years, but pulling a permit, right?
Right. We had on the approval of a conditional use permit from somebody
I
else.
thought, that was another question. I thought there was no conditional use permits out there. I mean, we talked about conditional use permits, and they said there was none.
Good point. So approval of a permit, approval of site and
Like a site and
architecture.
architecture approval.
Yeah.
We'll work on that wording, but I think,
Because
Yeah.
if you did a conditional use, somebody could put a fruit stand up there, and then
No,
all of a
yeah,
sudden I gotta
Yeah.
tie into the utilities, right? So-
okay. But, good.
Legitimate.
I think we're getting there.
We want something legitimate that would trigger his situation.
Exactly. There's no ambiguity for anybody.
Not a fruit stand or
Right.
somebody selling carpets.
So
or
somebody would
whatever.
have to use the connection.
If you don't mind me, I'll just keep moving along to the next one so we could keep going.
Absolutely, go
Is that
right
okay?
ahead.
The next item that we had was section 1.3, and this was addressing what happens if Mr. Yates or his entity or whatever entity, let's say he sold his company.
Okay.
What's the enforcement mechanism to make sure they actually tie in, right? I mean, that was this purpose. This 1.3 is the titled failure to connect to the public sewer utilities. Mr. Yates indicated he didn't like any of it, essentially. And there was 3 items in there. One is that his business permit expires, or I'm sorry, it gets revoked if he doesn't actually connect per the agreement. That's one way to ensure it.
Well, on that, you said business license, right? And so there would be 2 companies with business license that the business license can't be revoked.
Okay.
The permit, I understand.
Okay, right, permit then. The idea being you're not allowed to do business until you connect.
The permit, I fully understand.
Yeah. The second issue was, the second way to kind of ensure it is you put a liquidated damages clause in there, because we really don't know how much it would, how do you calculate what the damages are for not connecting to the sewer? And that is why you do liquidate, one of the reasons you do liquidated damages is you come to a term that says, this is an amount, I guess it's a reasonable approximation of the injury, and it puts pressure on, somebody that agreed to something that now.
Binder, I got it.
Right.
We understand that too, Mark.
Okay.
But I mean, the liquidated damages are on every contract we see, and we cross every one of them out, right? And then it's negotiated, the amount's negotiated out.
We're open to an alternate amount. I came up with a number just because it seemed right.
They're gonna have to be in there, I understand that.
Okay.
So maybe we can work on the amount,
We're all here. What's your thought?
1,500.
Sounds reasonable. And there, just one of the issues was to make sure that the liquidated, all of this runs with the land. So if you were to sell or something, God forbid, I call it getting hit by the bus, right? We go outside and we walk across the street and we get hit by the bus and all. Yeah, so I want to make sure it's binding on whoever owns that property after you.
Should go with the land.
Yeah. The last big issue, I guess, was an EIR. So the specific plan had an EIR done when the specific plan was done, but that was for that time, and it specifically stated what other businesses go in there might still have to do an EIR for whatever they're going to be doing. So I want to make sure we're not, I wanted to make sure the EIR at least was addressed in here, saying that that might have to happen. He might still, Mr. Yates might still have to do an EIR for his business.
An environmental impact report.
Correct.
Some of those aren't those exempt, certain projects?
Certain projects, this is a large piece of land. We'd have to look more into it to find out specifically how we would be able to move forward with it. The original EIR as well also has language indicating connection to water and sewer. It doesn't have any language regarding septic systems and/or wells.
Well, here's my thing. I got to make a comment real quick before we move forward. This is a lot of legalese. You know, this is lawyer stuff. A lot of this stuff is over my head. I mean, we're talking numbers and terms and red lines and green lines. Here's my thing. We're wrapping this man up in red tape right now. We're doing exactly what we want to do if we don't want him to open his business. If we want to say, you know what, once you stay in Oakdale, we don't want you here because we're going to make this extremely difficult for you. And that's what we're doing. So I want to find a way to allow this man to open his multi-million-dollar business in our community to provide jobs and service. And there's a lot of other ancillary benefits besides rather sending him a water bill, you know, and a garbage bill and a sewer bill every month. There's other things. So we need to find a way to make this easier for him. That's what we want to do. We don't want to make it harder. We want to make it easier for him to enter this community and provide service and do his business.
And respectfully, that is exactly what staff has been trying to do and what we're doing here tonight.
Really? Because it doesn't seem like that.
You're the client, so I can't enter into an agreement. You have to approve the agreement. We negotiate, and we come to you with a draft. We hit a deadlock, he negotiated, we negotiated. That's what your staff does.
I understand.
That's what we did. And correct me if I'm wrong, you've wanted a lot more input on a lot of the things that the staff does. But literally, besides that, we're here now at the impasse, and it's time to give it to you, the client. He's his own client, to determine the terms to get it moving. And we're actually doing that. As much as it seems like it's not, we've now got through, we're on the last, it seems like we've negotiated or worked out every problem that's been brought up.
Okay, fine. Maybe that's good, and you guys are doing a fantastic job, and that's fantastic. I appreciate that. What it seems like is he had a proposal. He brought something to the city. We made a lot of changes to that, because really what we're trying to do, and I don't want to lose sight of this, is we want the the utility lines to go out there. We want to find a way to do that. Why do we want that? Because we want to get our money. We want to have the developer pay to develop our city. I get that. I got that. But I'm holding on very hard, and you made a good point, and I get it, and I love the staff. But I am on the side of the entrepreneur.
And we are doing, we talk about that all the time, and we're doing it. The process takes.
Good.
The process.
Then let's make it happen.
It's a bit of a meat grinder, but hey, we're getting through it.
We have to do our diligence as staff to make sure we point out certain things to you. And then you take those into consideration as you're making the changes into the agreement.
Exactly. I have to do my due diligence to make sure that staff doesn't make it too hard for somebody to do something.
And that's what all of you are there for. Yeah, we put in that information for you to have as much information that you can to make your
Then I'm sorry to interrupt. What's the last point, Mark? You were on it?
We're on the EIR. And the whole point was the EIR has its own set of laws. We can't bypass that, right? All we're saying is, essentially, if his business needs an EIR.
What determines that? Do we know?
Whatever his business plan is going to be, and when his plans come in, and say, this is what I brought up last time, my one concern, he's doing metal fabrication, so I'm sure there's a concern of metals, which can be a hazardous material, going into the ground.
Well, I think he recycles everything. I don't think you're gonna have any.
Well, right, but that's.
Grind, weld, slag,
It still comes.
there's a lot of stuff that could impact.
So,
you.
so
You gotta
his
make sure
plans
that
will
it meets
determine
the-
that. His
Well-
plans will determine what level of EIR, if any.
Well, if he
he's gonna-
addresses most of the potential hazards, he'll be fine.
Right.
There you go.
That was my point, was
Well, I think
that
he'll
the
do fine.
specific plan EIR isn't a carte blanche, whatever business and how you're gonna structure it and actually put it in there
Yeah,
determines the EIR.
we have permits with
Sure.
the resource board, so, I mean, we know what we need to do to keep the permits in place so that we can do our job.
Sure.
I'm thinking groundwater, that's my background, actually, is in groundwater and ground pollution. That's why it's just jumping out of me. In any case, there was one, so that was the point that he wanted, it's under 1.5E, the developer shall be responsible for any modifications to the specific plan or environmental documents related to this agreement. It's short, it's to the point. If it's got to be changed, it's on the developer to do it. It might not have to be
And
changed.
that's based on environmental impact report?
And what his ultimate project's going to
So
be.
he brings his project forward, it's being through review, and as it goes through review, they check whether or not it meets all the criteria. If it doesn't, then he has to make those corrections.
Correct.
On his dime.
Essentially, yes.
Got it, okay.
That's
I
all
think
that.
he's been down that road before. I don't think this is his first rodeo. Okay, so where are we now? Are we pretty close to wrapping this up here?
So there is a section 1.5 regarding the standards, and it basically has the information that the septic system has to be installed to current standards. And there's mention that the language is kind of open to interpretation. We don't have a set of plans yet, and so we're trying to put that language in there to make sure that depending on what type of septic system it is and how it's detailed and the details that go with it, making sure the right agency is connected for that, which we know was gonna happen, but we put it into the agreement
That
to
makes
make
sense.
sure that it's caught.
Yeah, I don't think he has a
understand
problem.
that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get a permit to take it out.
Sure.
We've
Yeah.
already been in consultation with what we need for the amount of people out there.
And this is language with our city engineer. Originally it was talked about having it be for 100 people or 100 employees and so in case that changes or in case it increases or depending on what types of things are going into the system, we put that language in there.
Sure, of course.
And we would over-engineer in case there was an influx of
Yeah.
employees, right?
I mean, this is not his first development. He's got one out in a couple of
Yeah,
countries.
no, it's just
He's
making
been
sure
through all
that it's
this.
there.
All right. So where does that leave us now?
I guess the rest of public comment discussion.
I have a few
Okay.
questions,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay, being that we talked about bringing entrepreneurs and stuff, and I'm gonna bring up the business side of the question for the city. Obviously, with the development, we'll go through the developer fees and all that good stuff. As far as we talk about bringing jobs to town, we're gonna move roughly 100 jobs from Oakdale to Escalon. Is that the rough idea that you've got? Is that I understood what I heard a couple months ago or a month ago?
Yeah,
There's about 100 workers you're gonna move from one spot to another?
there's about 40 of them there.
40 of them? Okay. Secondarily, as far as revenue to the city, just to see that we're moving outside of a process for going with a deferred agreement, your business when it comes to town, when you're done developing, you bought the land, you built the building, I'm not asking for exact numbers, I'm asking magnitude of what that property roughly would be worth after you're done with it. I'm trying to assess what the property values are for that.
Are you interested in buying it or what?
No, I'm interested in understanding what the property taxes would be on that. I'm also curious, you mentioned sales, so I'm just curious.
I'm not a real estate appraiser. I have no idea. I know what it's worth, to buy it now, and I know what the value of the buildings will be on there, but I don't know what the property would become value-wise after that.
Right, there'll be a little bit more than that, but what are you roughly putting into the property? So I have
I
a,
don't know that I need to discuss that with you. I don't know.
okay.
if you're-
You talked about bringing revenue in, can you
Yeah.
recognize revenue in San Joaquin County? What your sales are anticipated in San Joaquin County?
When you're done talking, I will, but I don't think I need to tell you that.
Not trying to be difficult.
You already know. So when the property value goes up, you can have the tax assessor look at it. I don't think I owe you that information. Our cash sales last year were 28 million.
And how much in the county?
I don't know what that is.
Because my understanding is sales tax is based on where it's sold and it goes to county.
I would say 25% of that,
And I'm sorry, what was the number, the first number?
28 million.
So you got, how much of that? You said 25%,
I
so
can
that's
repeat
about
myself
7 million?
multiple times, right?
Warden?
I'm not gonna repeat myself multiple times. don't know where you're getting at with this, but the people that are coming.
You're asking for a deferred utility agreement, and I'm just asking what revenue stream you're bringing to the city for going outside of process.
I told you that.
No, you didn't.
I did so. But
You
where
didn't,
was
you
the
didn't,
28 where
you
was
didn't
the
tell, I'm
28
just
million?
roughly looking for numbers of the value of your property and how much sales tax in this county, because we get, what, less than 1% of the sales tax in this town? For the county? I'm just trying to get a rough idea of what you bring. You're touting, you're bringing all this in, but I'm curious as to what the town gets out of that after you build it. That's all I'm asking. And I haven't heard it.
Well, then listen, it was 28 million, right?
$7 million on sales tax,
So the
right?
product that's developed by this type of company goes into a county pool where where the destination purchase is. So if you assume the whole 28 million is in San Joaquin County, then it goes into the county pool, not to the city. The city gets 0.6% of what goes into county pool. So you're probably looking at, if it were 28 million and it were all sales within San Joaquin County, I'm going to estimate you're going to get about 13,000, excuse me.
13 in sales tax revenue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That would be the top end.
I look at this and I think the bigger picture is where it's going to lead us to. You know, not so much your here and now short-term gains, but as far as where it's actually going to take you.
Well, I understand that. I'm just
more like
asking,
what I'm
we're
looking
touting
at.
all this, and I'm actually trying to get to a number that,
Which
what we're
sounds
truly looking at
logical.
for this city.
Makes sense.
That's all I'm asking.
And then there's another aspect which you're not looking at, is that the employees that work there are gonna stop and get gas here, they're gonna stop at the stores and buy stuff, they're gonna go to lunch at, you know, any of the lunch spots in town, so every other business is gonna benefit in town also.
Okay. Can we move to the public now and ask some questions? You guys done? Gentlemen, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, you finished?
Yep.
Gentlemen, okay. Anyone out there would have any questions? We'd like to hear them, please.
Comments.
All right, we'll take those too.
I'm Roxana Gonzalez. I have lived here pretty much all my life, other than college. I work for Mr. Yates. We are, in case anybody looks at the news, we are going into pretty much a recession. Inflation is going crazy. You have someone who wants to bring tax revenue to town. That's going to hopefully lead to more tax revenue. I don't think that asking for 5 years is unreasonable. I completely understand what everybody has said. It's a lot different telling a developer, you'll get reimbursed whenever other people decide to develop, then you'll be reimbursed in 5 years. So if 5 years isn't agreeable and you say 4 or 3 or whatever Mr. Yates and the city agree to, it's a heck of a lot better than what you've got now. I really don't want to have to commute with gas prices the way they are, especially. It would be a few blocks from my home. There's a lot of people from Escalon that are working for Mr. Yates right now. I really don't see any drawback to this being built in Escalon for anybody. Sometimes I feel like Escalon wants to act like it's the prettiest girl at the dance, and everybody should be bending over backwards to do business here. Then you come to a city council meeting, and you have residents asking why we can't get senior housing, or why don't we have a car wash, or the situation with the police department. This all leads to better services for our community, and I just really think that this is a win for everybody. So I hope that you will consider working with him to make this happen.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, come up, please.
Hey, I support it. It's tax revenue. That's kind of the bottom line I see, so I don't know.
Okay.
I know people that know him. I don't know him myself. I hear he's a decent guy. He does employ a lot of people here that I know. In addition, I believe he does some part-time employment for high school. Some of our high school youth, I believe, work for you that are in the Escalon High School Ag program. And my son's in the Ag program. He doesn't have a work permit yet. But, you know, so I mean, this is good, skilled, good paying jobs here. Tax revenue, it's a lot of good stuff. So I support it. Let's do it. See if we can make a deal with a guy, get it done.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? else, please come up.
Roxana Schott, 1700 Riesling Way, Escalon. Excuse my voice tonight. What I'm concerned about is in this contract that we have, there's some contingencies that have to be removed in specific times. And I'm just trying to get a general idea how soon we can get this deferred agreement together, negotiate. You know, I don't know about this EIR. That kind of concerns me. And I'm just looking for some answers so I know what to tell the listing agent.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
What's the timeline?
Well, there's different timelines. We have investigation timeline, and then we have approval of the city for the specific operation. And that's not including planning or anything else, drawings, whatever. We're just trying to get a firm agreement together with our deferred agreement and with the use. So that's what we're trying to get a grasp on, timeframes.
Do we have all the big stuff kind of hammered out already?
From what it sounded like, from what Mr. Yates and we all discussed here, it seems like, yes. I was going to make a suggestion to speed this all up. If you're okay with the terms and what we've heard here today regarding the terms, you can authorize the city manager and myself to go ahead and complete and authorize the agreement. In other words, you know, you approve of the main terms that we've discussed, and you now turn it over to us, and we could finish the negotiations. And if what sounds like what we agreed to today actually is agreed to, then we could go ahead and approve it.
Would you like me to finish public input first?
Absolutely.
Okay. When we're done with that, I'll address your thing.
So
Okay.
then would we come back again to the next city council meeting?
I don't
in
know
2
how
weeks?
that works. Let me find out.
They just don't.
Excuse me, Mark. If in fact this goes well for them and you agree, the staff can do their agreement, when do they come back? Or do they come back to another meeting, or is it done without a meeting?
If you authorize
To ratify it?
us to approve it and complete the negotiations on it, it doesn't have to come back. That's what I'm trying to avoid, is for them to have to come back. If you guys are okay with those
We
main
want that.
terms, then we will go ahead and finish what needs to be done. And then
Okay.
you're authorizing us, the city manager.
What time frame are we looking at?
This week.
Changes this week, yeah.
Okay, there's your answer to your
So
question.
we just got to make an agreement and agree with everything that's going to be.
I think we've got an
So
agreement.
there's not going to be negotiations back and forth, and if there are, if we have to.
Well, I hope not.
changes,
It seems
then we
like
have to come
we've
back.
agreed to most of it.
Okay.
But once we actually sit down outside or something, and if he says, well, that's not what I said,
That's,
then-
yeah, something different. Then we'd have to come back.
I think we're,
no,
we're close.
then it's just, they delegate to us and we work it out. And if we can't agree, then yes, we'll come back to them. They're the client in the end, so.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Again, late night, it's dark. Sherry, let me just encourage you, do this thing, please. Get it done. Just
Thank you, Sherry.
Give them authority and go.
All righty. Is there anyone else out there? Okay, we got Mr. Strowman.
Promise this will be brief. My only comment is that with the EIR, I just think it's important that our constituents know that the trigger for the EIR is not the city of Escalon, not the city attorney, not the city manager, not anyone. It's California law. And so if an EIR is actually triggered, the city's hands are tied when it comes to an EIR. There's no discussion. It's
Correct.
the California law and the California Environmental Quality Act, otherwise known as CEQA. It is what it is.
Okay.
Thank you. That was,
Anyone else?
the only triggering event he mentioned is discussion of when to tie in, because that's the main point of this whole agreement, is deferred tie-in
We got
to the
that. I
city.
think we got that straightened out. Okay, anyone else? Anyone online? No one online, no one on phones? We'll bring it back to council. Council, what is your wishes?
So Mark, you'll work on the trigger points with Mr. Yates and come to an agreement there?
Yes.
As well as the deferred, what do they call that, the liquidated damages and all the other points that we're currently discussing. You guys will come to the agreements on that and then go forward from there?
You're essentially delegating the rest of the negotiation, so it doesn't have to come back to you.
How do you want that done? Is that a consensus or a vote?
Motion, that's a vote.
Motion, okay.
I'll put the first motion.
We have a motion for that?
Yeah,
We
motion.
have the motion to.
Second.
We have a motion to move forward on staff's recommendation, and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries 4-0. Congratulations, I wish you the best. And I hope you don't misunderstand what we're trying to do. We're just trying to cover our butts. Okay.
Yeah, let's go. We're gonna let Robert back in.
Talk to you tomorrow.
We'll get her done. Okay. Now, I feel like shit tonight. Terrible. I don't feel good at all. I mean, nobody can get something. All right, anyway, where are we? Where are we? Okay.
Yes,
Time for
yes.
public hearings.
Yes, yes.
Our first public hearing this evening, introduce and waive the first reading and hold a public hearing to consider the adoption of ordinance number 20, amending Escalon Municipal Code, Chapter 1751-050, notice of hearing staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
During the recent processing of a site and architecture application, the public expressed to the city council their dissatisfaction with the noticing requirements of projects. So Escalon Municipal Code, Chapter 17.51050, notice of hearing currently reads that unless state law requires otherwise, notice of the time and place of a public hearing by the Planning Commission or by the city council shall be given at least 10 calendar days before the hearing in the following manner. A, by publication of the notice at least one time in a newspaper of general circulation published in San Joaquin County and circulated in the city of Escalon. And B, by mailing the notice postage prepaid to all persons, including businesses, corporations, and other private or public entities shown on the last equalized assessment roll, or alternatively from such other records of the county or the tax collector as contains more recent addresses in the opinion of the planner as owning real property within 300 feet of the property which is subject of a proposed zoning application. At the March 21st council meeting, the council with input from the public approved Municipal Code Chapter 17.51050 notice of hearing to be sent to the Planning Commission for consideration and recommended updates. Excuse me. At their June 14th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commissioners conducted the public hearing and reviewed this section of the municipal code and made recommendations for updates related to the notice of public hearing published in the newspaper. The notice of public hearing mailed to the surrounding residents, as well as the inclusion of a requirement for an on-site notice of application signboard to be posted on the property. No members of the public attended the meeting in person or virtually, and no public comments were received for potential code changes. One, the publication of the notice of public hearing. The city currently publishes the notice of public hearing in the newspaper of general circulation that is circulated in the city of Escalon at least 10 calendar days prior to the public hearing. The Planning Commission recommended that the 10-day newspaper publication time remain the same. They also recommended it be required that the city post the notice on the city's official website and social media sites at least 10 days prior to the public hearing. Number two, mailing of notice of public hearing. The city currently mails via the U.S. Postal Service notices of public hearing to all property owners and occupants, tenants, within 300 feet of their proposed project, except multifamily tenant properties where individual unit information is not listed in assessor data. At least 10 days before the hearing. Government Code Section 65091A4 requires the 10-day and 300-foot criteria. However, Government Code is a minimum standard and may be increased by the municipal code to increase the number of days and/or increase the footage of radius to include additional parcels. The Planning Commission recommended that the notice of public hearing be mailed at least 15 calendar days before the public hearing. To keep the project applicant's expense down, they also recommended that the notice of public hearing be mailed only to property owners who then would be responsible for notifying their tenants. Several types of planning applications go before the Planning Commission under a public hearing. According to the municipal code, the hearings that are required on the following matters: annexations, Amendments to this title which change the land from one zone to another, or which create, abolish, or alter a zone or the regulations of a zone which govern land use, conditional use permits, variances, site and architecture permits where planning commission action is required, appeals regardless of whether a hearing was required for the original determination, revocation or city-initiated modifications of any permit or approval, regardless of whether a hearing was required for the existing permit, applicant-initiated modification for any permit or approval when a hearing was required for the existing permit and where the planner determines that that modification is significant, time extensions for any permit or approval when a hearing was required for the existing permit, demolition of a designated historic structure or structures in a historic district, whether to extend suspension of action on applications for demolition of a designated landmark. The Planning Commission suggested that the radius of which a notice of public hearing is mailed be based upon the severity of potential impact the type of application may have on the surrounding community. The Planning Commission has identified that the following application types may have a larger impact on the community: annexations, basically items A, B, E, H, J, and K, which are the larger ticket items, which are annexations, zone changes, site and architecture permits where Planning Commission has to be the one to act upon them, applicant-initiated modifications where where a hearing was required for that existing permit, or where the planner determines that it's significant enough to where it should be reviewed at Planning Commission level, anything related to historic structures or historic districts, and whether to extend suspension of action on applications for demolition of designated landmarks. As the above applications may have a larger impact on the surrounding neighbors, the Planning Commission recommended that the notice of public hearing be mailed to those within 1,200 feet of the project site. The Planning Commission has identified the following application types as more minor in nature and impact felt most by those closest to the project site. Therefore, the Planning Commission recommended that these notice of public hearings be mailed to those within 600 feet of the project site. And that's for conditional use permits, variances, appeals, regardless of whether a hearing was required for the original determination, revoking or permits or city-initiated modifications of any permit or approval, regardless of whether the hearing was required, and time extensions for any permit or approval when a hearing was required for the existing permit. So those are the items that are considered more minor by the Planning Commission. For application types, which is F, appeals, H, amendments, and I, time extensions, the radius of which the notice of public hearing was mailed on the original project would be the same used for the new application. For example, an appeal on a site and architecture application would be mailed out 1,200 feet, while an appeal on a variance would be mailed out 600. It goes to the original application process. As the notices of public hearing are mailed to each property owner and possibly tenant, there are costs related to paper, printer ink, envelopes, postage, and staff time. Planning application fees are currently calculated to include the cost of noticing within 300 feet of the project. The chart and images in Exhibit A show the increased number of parcels and potential costs associated with each distance increase. The Planning Commission recommends the notice of public hearing only be mailed to the property owner. If the council makes amendments to also include tenants when possible, then if the property owner is owner occupied, they only receive one notice. If the property is tenant occupied, then one notice is addressed to the current occupant at the property, as well as a notice mailed to the owner at their mailing address. Since not all properties are tenant occupied, the cost in Exhibit A is reflected as a maximum possible. So signage on the property. Planning Commission has recommended a requirement that an on-site planning application notice signboard be placed on the property. A draft example of the signboard and its details as recommended by the Planning Commission is included, in Exhibit B. Staff would provide the applicant with a completed PDF template, who would then take the template to a sign company for manufacturing and/or installation. The Planning Commission recommended that on-site planning application signboard only be required on potentially larger impact projects identified as letters A, B, E, H, J, and K, of Escalon Municipal Code 17.50.040, coinciding with the 1,200-foot mail-out. The minor applications identified as C, D, F, G, and I would not be required to install a signboard. However, if the original application in F, H, or I require the signboard, then the applicant would also have to install one for the subsequent application. So if they originally had the requirement of the signboard and made a modification appeal on their project, then they would have to do it again in conformance with their original application. City staff received a $300 estimate from a local sign company to make and install one such 4-foot by 8-foot signboard as described in Exhibit B. Public outreach and notice of public hearing of this proposed ordinance amendment appeared in the Escalon Times paper on July 6th. At the time of agenda publication, staff did not receive any public comments or inquiries on the item. We did have received one additional feedback regarding this item, and that was the potential inquiry asking that we look into some type of texting software, as everybody has a phone, but not everybody has access to the website and/or social media. But that would also be an additional cost that we have to look into if it was something that we wanted to move forward in. Recommendation is for council to this item comes before the council twice. Tonight it's here for the public hearing, introduction and waiving of the first reading, and to hold that public hearing to consider adoption of this ordinance. And then if it moves forward, it's scheduled for the next meeting for a second reading and adoption. Once it's officially adopted by the city council, it goes into effect with, after 30 days. So if you have any modifications or changes you'd like to make, ideally, this would be the meeting to make those changes and modifications.
Yeah, council members, any changes offered?
Well, I've got one question regarding the 10-day to send it out. I understand the concept behind 15 days before the meeting to mail everything out, just assuming 5-day lag time. But what was the rationale with keeping the typical notice to 10 days?
I think that was the minimum per government code, and it also seemed like a reasonable amount of time to them, as well as we publish in our local newspaper, which only prints the advertisement weekly, and so it's only printed every Wednesday, and so the 10 days essentially catches the Wednesday 10 days before the meeting, whereas if it was printed sooner, more time.
And this is just a general rule for all of the different categories, right? 10 days at a time?
It was 10 days, and then I think on the larger ones, they extended it to the 15.
The 10 days including weekends?
And calendar days.
Calendar days.
Yeah, because initially I thought, well, what's the harm with going, 15 days and therefore 20 days mail? I didn't know what the harm was with that.
At least 10 days. And they recommended that the 10-day newspaper publication time remain the same. They also recommended it be required that the city post the notice on the city's official website and social media sites at least 10 days prior. And so that's for the public notice of public hearing. So essentially 10 days before the meeting, we post on the website, post on the social media, and have it published in the newspaper 10 days prior.
But the mailing actually be 15.
The mailing
Right.
is extended to the
Well, and that's why, if I would suggest that, if we can change that 10 to, let's say, 15, and then you change the mail to 20. Again, I'm assuming that you've got that 5 days just for lag time with the mail. And the reason for that is just to give a greater opportunity for people to either inquire about it, ask questions about it, because again, it could be very plausible that if you see it in the paper that one time, it could be day 7, day 8, who knows? And so by moving it up to 15 days, you've got 2 weekly, you have 2 notifications of it. Hopefully that would give the time for the public to be able to ask questions, to learn more about the issue. And again, I think the impetus for this, obviously, is our own village. And I think a lot of the complaints were like, hey, whoa, we didn't know, we only had 6 days or 5 days, however many days, they had before, because we were already 5 days into that period. So if you move it up to 15 days, notice and therefore 20 days to mail, regardless of the category, that might not be a bad thought, just to give everybody a little more of a chance to.
Is that a consensus? Does everybody agree to extend that an additional 5 days, calendar days?
Any objections, gentlemen?
I'm good with it. I like it.
Good with it?
That
You
gives
got a
everybody
consensus?
plenty of
Everybody good with it?
representation time then.
Question I have for you when he's finished. You done?
I'm done.
Okay, yeah, no problem with that. Question I have on posting signs on these properties. What is it, let's go over that right now, again. We used to have an ordinance that was almost, I think it was either 30 or 90 days prior to any development, there was gonna be a 4x8 sheet of plywood put up on the property so people could see the potential development ahead of time. So if there was any opposition, they could actually have something, they'd know what was going on. So where do we stand with that now?
So signage on the property, they've recommended to require on-site planning application notice signboard, so a 4x8 sign board. The example of it's on Exhibit A.
What's the time limit?
Excuse me. Exhibit B, and the time limit, I mean, it's a publication, let's see here. We're gonna provide them the template information.
Doesn't say.
It doesn't say, let me check.
You wanna
make
add
sure
that.
It's not listed on the actual photo. Hold on.
Just put the time limit on it. I
'Cause I
think
know we did address it, so it might have been something that was not caught in this application.
I want enough time on there for people to know that something's coming, so if it does come and there's opposition, they have plenty of time to oppose it. I don't
And
want
we
to.
did have a detailed discussion on that, because basically what was happening is they submit their application, and staff needs time to review the application to make sure it's complete. And in that time period, we talked about, once we advise them that the application is complete enough where they've submitted all their information, we would give them like a 5-day turnaround to post the sign on it. And so we typically take a 30-day window to put project out for application to
Well,
outside agencies.
my concern is this. I don't know if it's 30, 60, or 90 days it's necessary, but I don't want a situation where when people find out about something they're opposed to, the time is run out for them to oppose it. So if 30 days isn't enough, let's make it 60. But I don't want a situation where people find out about a project and they're totally opposed to it, and then they have no recourse because they didn't know about it soon enough.
Okay, sure. So signage-wise, that's what we did talk about in the meeting, was we probably need about a week to review the application to make sure it's complete. And then we take that application once we receive all the information, and we forward it for a 30-day review to all outside agencies that are affected. So PG&E, MID,
Got it.
SSJID,
Sure.
school district, county. And so at that time, when we put that notification out, we could advise them, you have 72 hours to put this sign up. We email them the PDF, we create the PDF
Sure.
for them, email it to them, you have 72 hours to put it up. And typically what we've done in the past, when we've had this criteria more related to weed abatement and other items, we ask them to show proof of install by showing a picture, or we have Public Works meet them out there to make sure it's installed in an area that doesn't affect visibility.
Okay, but I'm not sure we're answering my question. My question is this.
So-
I want the sign to be out there long enough that if somebody were opposed to it and they noticed it, they'd have time for recourse. I don't want a situation ever where they find out about something and it's too late, then what's the point?
So if we have them post the sign within a week of submitting their application,
Right.
that would roughly put the sign out 2 to 3 weeks. Do you think that's enough time, or do you want a full 30 days?
I want a full 30 days.
Because whatever time period you pick is going to slow the project.
That's fine.
All projects.
It's worth it. And I'll tell you why it's worth it, because if they miss it, and I go through what I did just recently in this last thing we went through, I don't want to do that again.
Okay.
That was terrible. And I don't want that ever repeated.
I want to clarify, you just said all projects.
All project that this sign would apply to.
Right, okay, that's fine.
The projects that are defined as major projects, which were annexation, zone
Sure.
changes.
It's worth the wait.
And that 30 days is a good number.
Yeah, it's worth the wait. I'd rather be slow and make fewer mistakes and be in a hurry and not give it a fallout.
That applies to new businesses developing?
It would apply to new development, correct. So any new development, site and architecture,
So we're slowing it down in order to inform the public of what's coming.
We're giving them an opportunity to respond to it. Yeah, I think it's
Which if you
important.
want that 30-day window, at staff level, we're still gonna be processing
Sure.
stuff. We're gonna be reviewing it, we're gonna
It's
be
not gonna slow
putting
it
the
down, it's
comments
just gonna give an
together.
opportunity for people to see what's going on.
Sometimes it ends up working out 30 to 45 days anyhow.
I was
with the
gonna say, we
process.
don't move that quick anyway.
Yeah, so we would definitely try to get it up as soon as possible so that it.
We had it that way before.
Excellent. So
I don't know what
that we move
happened
as
to it.
quickly as we can.
It used to be 30 days before any project of any magnitude, we had a sign out there, and all of a sudden it disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, it needs to be back, and it has to be a standard. That's just something that really gives a chance for everyone to be aware of what's going on.
So the city puts the sign up or the
No,
developer?
the person who's doing the
Oh, okay.
project. Okay.
Just, if I may, the point being of slowing things down, this is completely your discretion, whether you want it 20 or 30 days or whatever. Just, council, keep in mind, we're often asked by you to speed projects up, and here we are, getting opposite advice, if I may say that. And so if something comes along and you get a complaint that, my goodness, I need to put a sign up and I missed it, so now this has to wait until the next site review or something, and I can't open my business now for 60 days, and you come
You can
to
appeal to
staff
council.
asking us, we cannot. We're going to turn around and say, this was,
You could appeal to council, and the council can make a decision then.
well, we've discussed, well, they have to get on the agenda to appear, to
Well,
appeal to
listen,
the
here's the bottom
council.
line for me,
And
Mark, I don't care, because here's what I do care about. I get tired of when we have situations where people come in here and go, we didn't know a damn thing about it. And then I gotta listen to that, and then I gotta listen to everybody doing screaming and hollering. It's not worth it. 10 days one way or the other, Mark, is not gonna make a difference.
I'm just saying, council, when you ask for us to speed things up at times,
Yeah.
maybe we can't, and we might turn around and say, well, the ordinance you adopted is because why we can't speed this up.
Well, your point's well taken with me, and I agree that we shouldn't slow things down by policy like this, and I think 20 days or 30 days, and frankly, to me, it comes down to, if I buy a property and I want to open a business, why do I need to let everybody around know about that? And this comes back to the Irwin Village project and the whole uproar, but I don't think I support the 30 days. I'm gonna go with the 20.
That's fine. We can have a consensus if you like. Is that what you need?
Well, after
After
public comment,
we'll
it
deal
comes
with it.
back, and
That's
there'll
fine.
have to be a motion.
Public hearing, anybody interested in discussing this with us? If you do, come to the podium, please.
Yeah, Cody Fowler, 1550 Judith. So I was actually on the other side of the country when that planning commission meeting happened, so otherwise I would have went. But I did watch the meeting and read all of the goodies, and I actually thought it was a pretty damn good negotiation for what I was asking for when I brought this up. So if you're looking for input there, I thought it was good to, because I think I said 2,000 or 1,500 feet or something originally in February when I brought this up. And, of course, that 1,200 feet is a really good negotiation, I thought. So I liked what they gave you. And that's why I didn't give her any other public comment, was because I thought it was cool. Thought it was a good negotiation. You guys might want to take that into consideration. It's kind of getting something better than 300 feet. I thought it was reasonable.
I did too.
That's just my input. Thank you.
All righty, anyone else? Anybody on the phones or the computers like to chime in? Bring it back to the council, gentlemen. I would accept a motion for an extended 30 days or not.
So let me just clarify for me, just
Okay.
for a quick second.
Sure.
So the idea is to put a sign up in 72 hours from the time someone submits a project at that point, and then our normal process to review and work back and forth with said developer or individuals is, the back and forth is 30 to 45 days, is that what you said?
We typically look at 30 to 45 days before the project hits planning commission, but it is dependent on when they submit.
When it hits the month and when the next meeting
Yeah,
is?
where it hits, where they've submitted. It typically takes us a week to review and make sure everything's in there. We would try to start the 30-day period or post for it as soon as possible. But we basically need to, we want to make, well, I mean, I guess we could just have them post within 72 hours of applying.
I think that
that's
makes
probably
sense.
easiest.
And then a 30-day window is,
Either that, or we did talk about, there's a
Within their
note on the
window.
bottom of 131 where we received a $300 estimate for the local sign company to make and create a board for us. And so maybe we end up taking that route where we have the board and have them, we install the board for them at the location, and then they go and pay the printing cost to have it done. We'd give them the PDF, and they'll have to blow it up and post it on the board. And we can work that out. We'll try to work that
That's what we
all
did in the
out.
past.
Yeah.
I think the key here is
Make it legible
transparency,
from
basically, right?
Absolutely right.
from it. I'm sorry.
I say, I think the key here, what Mayor Ed's getting at is he wants to make sure there's a complete transparency.
Correct, yeah. And so ideally, at staff level, we would like to move forward with whichever one is the most effective and efficient at the time. And so we'll have to, we can make that determination. But yeah, we would definitely start the 30-day period as quickly as we can to get that clock rolling.
I think if we do that, we'd be fine with 30 days because it wouldn't impact their project. If it takes 30 to 45 days to work it through the process.
Well, and that's the thing, and I think,
72-hour deal, I think we're good.
Yeah.
yeah, and I agree, and I think Mark's point is very well taken, so next time we'd want to say, let's move this thing along, just remind us, hey, you know what you guys did? So in other words, we own this, we gotta accept we own this. I'd like to move that we, go along with staff's recommendation with the following changes. The publication of the notice of public hearing, move that from 10 to 15 days, and therefore mailers from 15 to 20 days. And then regarding the signs, 30-day, to be out there 30 days.
Posted for 30 days.
Posted, there, that's the word I'm looking
Is this a
for,
motion?
posted. That is a motion.
We have a second.
I'd second
We
that.
have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed?
Okay.
We have 1 nay, 4-1. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Number 10, considering of conducting a public hearing, approving a resolution, adopting a report requesting the placement of a special assessment on property tax rolls for recovery, code enforcement, and enforcement abatement costs as set forth in the Escalon Municipal Code for the property located at 2128 Franklin Street, in APN 227-240-290-000. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Background and discussion on this item. This property has been through code enforcement processes from 2019 to present. In June of 2019, the city issued a notice and order to abate, which gave the owner until June 30th, 2019 to abate multiple identified nuisance conditions. On January 28th, 2020, the Escalon Fire Department responded to a call for an electrical outlet fire at subject property. The fire was out upon fire department's arrival. The fire department investigated the subject property and found an electrical socket in a bedroom that had arced and started to burn up the outside of the wall. The fire department also noticed that the subject property lacked smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. On January 30th, 2020, the city inspected the subject property and observed nuisance conditions continued to exist on the property. The city posted an unsafe to occupy notice advising to not enter or occupy the subject property. Numerous health and safety issues were identified, and the following abatement process was followed. In February of 2020, the city issued a notice in order to abate to the owner, citing California Residential Code sections, and they're all specified in here, regarding lack of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide, designated nuisances, prohibited growth, rubbish, and garbage, and the notice and order to abate stated that the subject property was not fit for human habitation and must remain completely vacated until emergency conditions are corrected. A copy of this notice and order was sent by certified mail to property owner on February 10th, and a copy posted on the property on February 11th of 2020. Towards the end of February 25th, 2020, city received a citizen's complaint that a tree fell during the windstorm, and the owner of the subject property chopped up the limbs which were blocking the sidewalk. On February 26th, 2020, the city issued a notice in order to abate, citing designated nuisances, which gave owner until February 29th to correct nuisance violations, including removing the tree limbs and debris blocking the sidewalk. A copy of this notice was mailed to the owner. In June of 2020, owner submitted a building permit application for an electrical panel upgrade. In July of 2020, the owner submitted a building permit application to the city describing the work to be done as a house remodel. The city had rejected the application due to the type of permit required for a house remodel, requiring a construction plan set or a very detailed written scope of work to accompany the application. The owner did not submit a plan set or detailed written scope of work with the application. Therefore, the application was incomplete and returned to the owner. July 27th, 2020, we rejected the June 17th application for an electrical panel upgrade because the application was incomplete. August 11th of 2020, our building official, Mike Brinkman, met with owner and discussed scope of work to be completed. On August 18th, the owner submitted a drawing of the house remodel to city. August 21st of 2020, the city issued a building permit expiring August 21st, 2021, a year later, for a full remodel of subject property to abate and correct the substandard housing. In September, owner submitted plans to construct an addition and an accessory dwelling unit. On September 30th, 2020, the city sent a correction letter to owner regarding the plans the owner submitted with regards to the main dwelling addition and the new accessory unit. The letter advised the owner of the code requirements to both dwellings, requesting a response from the owner. Owner submitted revised plans on November 9th, 2020 and November 16th, 2020. Since the owner did not address any of the required corrections in his revised plans, the city informed the owner that the plans were not complete. In November of 2020, the city issued a notice and order to abate, ordering that the owner correct all of the following nuisance violations. A, an unpermitted building addition. B, a lack of adequate heating. C, unpermitted wiring in unpermitted addition. D, unpermitted air conditioning in unpermitted addition. E, hazardous exterior siding. F, damaged and unsafe wiring and equipment. G, substandard building, hazardous electrical. H, temporary wiring treated as permanent. I, hazardous plumbing. J, hazardous water heater. K, hazard walls and ceilings. L, broken or missing windows and doors. M, roof leak. N, exterior accumulations constituting fire, health, and safety safety hazards. O, inadequate egress. P, inadequate ventilation. Q, lack of smoke alarms. R, lack of carbon monoxide detectors. S, substandard plumbing, and inadequate bathroom. The notice to abate gave the owner 30 days from the date of the notice to abate nuisance conditions. The notice to abate was sent by certified mail. Return receipt requested on November 20th, 2020. February 9th of 2021, the city obtained an abatement warrant from San Joaquin County Superior Court which authorized the city to demolish and remove all structures on the subject property by March 26, 2021. If you do recall, members of the council that were on the council at that time, we had discussed this item and it was agreed upon by the council to move forward with that direction. March 22nd, 2021, due to unforeseen delays with PG&E and asbestos testing requirements, the city obtained an abatement warrant extension until May 6th of 2021. In April 27th of 2021, due to burdensome requirements with PG&E and asbestos abatement, in lieu of completing the abatement warrant and demolishing the subject property, the city elected to enter into a performance agreement with the owner of the subject property. March 24th of 2022, the building permit to abate the nuisances on the property received completion sign-off by the city building department. Code enforcement case and subject property is closed. July 7th, 2022, the invoice for abatement costs and notification of the public hearing mailed regular and certified to the address listed on the most recent tax roll, as well as the most recent known addresses for the property owners, as well as a door tag hung at the subject property. The total cost for this abatement process, as explained and attached in Exhibit A, which is the report of costs, is $33,294.33. Attaches the proposed resolution for consideration. Staff recommends that council conduct the public hearing and approve the resolution adopting a report requesting the placement of special assessments on the property tax roll for recovery of the costs incurred. for the code enforcement abatement as set forth in Escalon Municipal Code for the property located at 2128 Franklin Street.
Okay, let's have the gentleman who this evening is here and hear his side of it. Would you come to the podium and give us your name, please?
Can I ask a question?
Sure you can.
Before that?
Go right ahead.
Are we talking about the same owner this whole time? Because when I'm looking at Zillow, it says it sold July 21st of 21. Are you the same owner since 2019?
No.
So you took it over?
I took it over during the construction period.
Okay, that's right, just wanted to...
Was the previous owner related to you?
Yes.
Thank you. Who is
Okay.
he? How is the relation to you?
He's my uncle.
Okay, very good.
Did you have a title search done on it
Did I have a title
prior to
search?
buying the property? Was there a lien on it at the time?
There was no lien on
No,
it at
the
the time.
lien is placed after
Can we have your name, please?
completed.
My name is Gabriel Albor.
One more
Sorry.
time?
What's that?
One more time?
Gabriel Albor.
Alvar. Okay, Gabriel, thank you. Go ahead.
I mean, I just wanted to say, everything that they were saying there, as soon as the fire department came, because there was a notice on the tenant said, it sparked, it wasn't a huge fire, it was vacant after that, no one was living there after that happened. We were always in communication with the city, whether it was Mike, the previous inspector, and then Randy, and finally the latest inspector that went out to close it off. I mean, we've been working with them. Basically, the only thing that we're talking about is, I don't know why we need to pay all these fees. If we've already paid the permit cost, the property is already going to get reassessed because it's a brand-new house. And, I don't, we don't think it's necessarily, we don't know what these fees are coming from. We paid for permits, we double paid for permits because they wanted us to do some work. When the tree fell, we did it. Permits weren't approved, so when we paid for the permits to get those things done, we had to double pay. And we've done that on multiple properties in the area, so I'm just...
How did you let that house get in such bad shape?
I mean, poor management, there's no excuse for it getting in such bad shape. That's why,
I mean, that's a long, long list of things that are wrong.
Yeah. If you look at the house now, it's in perfect condition, and,
Well, the problem is you took a lot of staff's time to get to that point. Who pays for that? That's the problem.
yeah.
These people are out there trying to make sure that that house that you owned, or your uncle owned, was gonna be safe for somebody who lived in it, so we wouldn't have somebody get hurt or die or whatever. And they took, they're professionals. Their time is expensive, and they're out there doing something that you guys weren't doing. And that's why they did their job to make you do your job. And that's why the numbers are up there the way they are, because their time is spent on that thing. If you'd done your job, they wouldn't have had to do theirs. Done your job, they wouldn't have had to do theirs.
We've started submitting permits to do those things. At first we were gonna do a remodel, came back, we can't do the remodel. Then we were gonna do, there was an addition that was built. I didn't build the addition, it was already there. The bathroom was like weirdly in that addition, so we had to demolish the whole house, essentially the back half of the house, in order to put a bathroom, because the bathroom was kind of in the hallway. That house is, a really old house, has a weird floor plan. I don't know what the laws were back then. We've been working with the city, back and forth to try to get it approved. There has been issues with the property, but we've been going, back and forth. We approved it. No, it can't. We need to do this. Okay, let's meet, try to get it done. Okay, we need to do this. We need to do this. And every step of the way, there hasn't been a week during that time period where I wasn't calling and trying to figure out what could we do to speed this along. Because I do realize they were working as we were. We didn't want to leave it like that either, but we weren't getting our permits approved until we, had to sign the agreement at the end.
Okay, counsel, you have a question for this gentleman?
It seems like most of the cost is the attorney office staff, so not necessarily like, Dominique or anybody like that. So most of this is what did the attorney do in all this?
Paperwork.
So this is code enforcement processes, which staff is experienced in basic code enforcement, not to the extent that we were moving forward with at council level when we talked about originally demolishing the property and moving forward with that. You go through an abatement warrant. Those type of things need to be written up correctly and submitted to the court for review, and you can chime in on that.
If I may chime in as well, there was a point in time where we had plans submitted to the city, and during that time, you guys were cutting down electric power to the property to demo the house while there was plans in revision or whatever. So it wasn't like there was nothing done, and they were moving forward with a demolition when there was plans in the building department.
In their defense, I'll tell you, they put up with a lot. And that's what happens. I think they just got to the point they couldn't trust you anymore. Not you personally, but the previous owner, who basically, when they would ask something, it never got done. And they just got to the point, from my understanding, is they said, okay, we're gonna do this. And I don't blame them. They went through hell with this property. I mean, we heard about it every week. So I don't know what to tell you, except that they racked up a ton of hours, and they wouldn't have had to done any of that had you taken care of your end of it. Not you personally, but the people that own the property.
What are you seeking from us? Do you want us to, like, take this bill off the table and not force it on you, or what? What are you hoping?
I'm open to, helping out with some of those costs that were accrued. I do get that there was time that we were being unresponsive towards the beginning, but some of these fees, we just, not your concern, but we just racked up a bunch building this property, and then to get hit 10 days after we're done with a large bill.
Which fees? How much? Get specific.
The attorney fee is the one that we don't see what was done there justifies, 104 hours of time. And, we never got any sort of bill. In the contract, it says if there was no lawsuit filed, no breach of contract, that those aren't billable to the owner of the property, from my understanding of the contract that was there. So that's the biggest one on there.
Well, I think a municipality takes things like notice to abate, demolish the property very seriously, and unfortunately, that means that we really rely strongly on the attorneys to navigate us through this unfortunate situation, to make sure that we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's. And I would imagine all those costs, that $33,000 and change, have probably already been paid out, correct?
We have paid it.
And that's all taxpayer money, so that we've had to go towards this. I'm very happy that everything's in shape now, right? Finally,
yes.
Right? But unfortunately, this is what it took to get to this point.
So what's the city gonna do? They're gonna put this on his, they're gonna lien the house, or what are they doing?
No, so there's several ways that we could enforce abatement, the cost to recover, basically for the city to cost their abatement. In our municipal code, the way it's set up is there's a hearing, and the city approves it to go on the, basically it goes on their property tax. So it ensures it gets paid, because now it's in the property tax.
Right.
So we're not just doing a lien and then sitting in, a typical lien, it'll go on the property, and you don't get paid back until the property sells, because the new seller goes, well, in order to get clear title, you have to pay off this lien.
Right.
So, that could take forever, and we can never see the money.
And that's at 18% a year.
So the city, a long time ago, when they adopted the municipal code, said, no, we want to make sure we get our money back for this stuff, and we're going to put it on the tax roll.
How many years is the property tax over? You know what I'm saying? Like the bill of $33,000, is that on the next year, or is it over a span of 10 years, or, you know what I'm saying?
That's a good question.
I think it would,
This guy has his
We have
hand
an
up.
answer back here.
yeah.
Okay, so basically, it's a $33,000 bill.
Are there any other options?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's.
Property owner can then enter into repayment agreement with the county. Part of the problem would be with property is that if he's got a $33,000 bill, plus he's got just say a $40,000 tax bill. County won't allow you to pay unless you get into the agreement. So if
Foreclosure.
Excuse me, sir, what's your name and? Oh, okay, interesting, all right. So it sounds like tonight we have to figure out what we're gonna do with this $33,000 bill, and you're disputing, most of it with the attorney's staff time, is that right?
Yes.
And you're hoping that we'll just do away with it, or?
Well, like I said, on the contract that we signed, because, they weren't going to grant us our permit to build the property without signing that contract. It says on there, in the event of any provision that this agreement is breached by the owner, all the city's attorney fees, fines are paid, but no part of that contract was breached because we finished the property in time. So that's what I thought that was the time on that attorney fee.
So you feel like this bill violates the contract?
In some ways, yes.
Okay. I mean, from my perspective, sitting up here, this is what staff's telling me, this is the situation, they've laid it out clearly, and then you come up and go like, well, that's not what the contract says. So if I was you and I was in your position, I would get a lawyer to look at this and go, here's the contract, here's the bill they sent us. Is there any recourse that I have? And then you could, this is a legal thing at this point. I mean, there's nothing, we can't sit up here and just be like, yeah, I mean, we don't know. This is what our city attorney's telling us, and this is what our staff's telling us. We've got it all documented. You dispute it. So my advice to you would be, get an attorney to look at the contract and look at these bills and go from there.
And then who would I bring that information to? The city?
You'd bring it to.
Attorney would, you wouldn't.
Yeah, your attorney or
the attorney would bring it to the city?
bring it to the city's attorney, and that's.
Okay.
They'll negotiate a settlement.
That's the only way to move forward, I think, at this point.
And is there a time frame on getting this resolved?
Gentlemen, Mark, what do you got?
I could tell you that in order to sue a public entity, you have to follow the Tort Claims Act. Generally, it's 6 months or 1 year, depending on what your claim's going to be. I'm not your attorney. I can't tell you what that be. It's either 6 months or a year that you would need to bring a claim here before you could even sue the government entity.
Doesn't mean that should discourage you. It takes a long time, as you can see, to do things. And if you feel like you're right and that you have a legal dispute, you should go through those hoops and you should fight it.
Okay.
And I mean, I know you might have wanted to hear something different tonight or whatever, but I think.
I just wanted to express that, I'm aware that this is going on, and I want to do whatever's.
You know what, just my personal feeling is, his advice might be good, I don't know. But what I would do if I were in your shoes, I would contact the staff and sit down with them and tell them and talk to them, and I'll be honest with you, you're better off with that, because by the time you get an attorney involved here, your 40,000, whatever it is, gonna be a lot higher. So my advice is whatever you can negotiate with these people is what I'd look at.
Okay.
Because it's gonna save you a lot of money with an attorney. Attorneys are $200 or $300 an hour. And they charge when they talk to you on the phone and everything, so it's not gonna be.
They round up. Every quarter hour.
So, well, you
Or
can,
10.
I don't have an issue with you disputing, that's fine, but my advice, if it was me, I'd try to set up a meeting with the staff and tell them what's going on, let them hear what you have to say, and then whatever they give you, I'll be honest with you, I'd take it.
We still have the rest of the public comment to hear, but does council want to continue this to the next meeting? So
Which part? This here?
This whole,
It's a public hearing, so if you continue it to the next meeting, that would.
That's what the staff recommends, we can.
it sounds like that's what, because we can't, this is up to you. I'm just throwing options out. You guys want options. It sounds like if you're saying we'll have him negotiate with us, then we're going to have to come back and say.
Why do we have to go back? Why can't we give you the authority just to resolve it the best you can?
No.
Because it's taxpayers' money and we can't just.
I'm not negotiating away. You could all, as the council, can negotiate away the money. I can't.
I understand. I got it.
So.
Okay. So we can do that. We can continue it.
So, yeah, and it might be, that gives us the options to do what you're suggesting right now, if that's what the council consensus
Well,
or
let's
vote is.
find if there is a consensus.
No.
We have a no here. What do we got here?
No.
We have 2 no's. What do we got?
Yes.
I'd say yes, give him some time.
Oh, God, yes.
But maybe we'll continue with the public, see if there's any other comments
That's
from
what
the
we'll do
public.
that. Then we'll come back and visit.
I have a
Let's
couple
see.
minutes.
Thank you.
All right, anyone in the public that'd like to speak regarding this issue? I didn't think there would be. Okay, how about anybody online? Somebody? Anybody? Nobody? Okay, so.
And if I may, just a
Yes,
little
you
bit.
may. Go ahead.
You know, this took over 2 years to get this property in compliance. There was over a year of
Oh, I know.
no response. What you saw was just a summary of everything that we did, the notices that we gave them and the attempts that we did, staff did. To come to before council like we did and suggest an abatement warrant, and we came before the council, it took a year, and they said nothing's happening. The council at the time said, yeah, it is an eyesore, it's a derelict property, and one of the bills from the attorneys was I needed an attorney from our firm that deals with abatement warrants, and gave you a presentation on whether we fix it up ourselves, sell it to recoup our money, and then the owner gets the remainder if there is any, and the council's was, no way are we going to spend all that money, city money, to rehab a house and then sell it and hope we recoup it.
Well,
Way more cost-effective to just demolish the thing.
on that scenario.
The owner at that time never showed up to that hearing. That was a public hearing that was open, and he had notice of, and here we are another year later. I will also finish by saying, we've worked with the owners, absolutely. If you noticed, they came to us after we got the abatement warrant, and then we withheld the abatement warrant and entered into agreement to let them fix it, because council's direction was always try to work with the citizens to get it done, and we did.
So are you saying we made the wrong decision by
No,
continuing the discussion?
I'm saying the $30,000 and in attorney's fees is light, if anything.
Yeah, I understand, but to me, if I got a $33,000, property tax, on top of what I already paid, it would keep me up at night, so. It's concern for this gentleman, he brought it up tonight, so we're gonna continue the discussion.
It doesn't have to go on his taxes if he just writes the
Hey, you know what, we already continued it, so why don't we move on to the next thing?
Well,
I just wanted to advise you as well, when it comes specific to code enforcement, that city staff is always looking for voluntary compliance, and that's why there's always that process where 10 days, 14 days, 7 days, we ultimately want people to comply. In this instance, that first year, we weren't getting any information, and that's why it got as far as it got, was because we weren't getting.
The only thing I'll say, and I won't disagree with you at all, I think you guys did your job, and I remember going through all this headache and all this pain and all these meetings and all that stuff. I haven't forgotten any of it. Only thing I would say is it's a shame that you own it, and instead of the guy before who really created this mess.
I agree.
And we're not.
I agree.
We're not, my decision this evening is not about you. It's about the previous owner. And because of that, I'm gonna agree with these two gentlemen, and now you have a consensus of 3, it's over.
So you do a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Swift.
Yeah, no, I move that we approve resolution adopting a report requesting the placement of special assessments.
Even when I owned the property, I never got an opportunity to like review that contract with, at that time to know, hey, this is what's gonna happen. After you finish the property, there's gonna be another bill on top of that for $40,000. And we never got to. It was sign this so we could give you the permit, or you're not getting a permit. And that part of the year-long in the beginning was, we didn't have the money to fix it, which is not your problem, I understand that, but we weren't thinking about it constantly to have this property there be an eyesore. I grew up in this community my whole life. I'm not just, trying to do that, I'm trying to fix the thing. But, part of the reason and that's maybe our fault, is that we didn't address it right away, but as soon as we had the funds or tried to figure out a way to do that, we started working on that. And I'm sure if you talk to these people, they'll say that I was there at every inspection. I was doing all these things to try to make sure, nor was I made aware that, hey, by the way, after the final inspection and you pass and everything, there's gonna be a $40,000 bill that hits you a month later, and you gotta pay it in 10 days.
At what point did you get involved in this whole
When did you buy the property? Yeah.
I was involved since we were doing the ADU.
ADU.
Room in the back.
Yeah, well, there was a room in the back, but we had to demo that. We submitted plans to keep the small unit in the front and build the ADU in the back.
Right.
And because the lot is so small, we went through all the plans, architecture and everything, but you had to have 2 off-street parking and 1 off-street parking for the 2 different units, so that wasn't gonna work took some time to get that.
When was the ADU? When was that?
Looks like September of 2020 is when plans to construct an addition in the ADU. And then we responded back with a correction letter because there were things that were needed for those items, and that's in accordance with building code.
Because it's showing on, unless this is wrong, it's showing on sold July 21st, 21, which I would assume would be when you bought it.
And it's my understanding, and maybe Mark can clarify, that these types of agreement run with the land, and so it's one of those things where, like the one that we had with Mr. Yates previously, it's an agreement on that property, and so it runs with the land. He's going through it right now.
But I agree with the mayor. I think it sounds incredibly unfortunate that it sounds like you were given a hot potato.
So would it be fair to extend it a little bit longer so I could have the opportunity to maybe speak with an attorney and see if there's anything?
Yeah, or create a payment structure to pay it off instead of slapping him with a $33,000 property tax bill. Why can't we do something to help this guy out? I mean, it's freaking heartless.
You mean with the county?
I don't know.
Because it'll go on the county tax rolls.
County, they collect the tax, we don't.
Yeah.
County's one of
At
the-
what point did you know that the staff and the city was really getting exasperated with this whole thing?
Again, when I started coming in and do the ADU thing, I mean, I was,
I don't think so.
at that, there had been other right? You
Sure.
send a letter, I understand that part of it. Sometimes we didn't fix the lot or whatever it was, and they would charge us with the fee, but never had we gotten, and again, I'm okay with a lot of these line items here. The biggest issue that I have is just the attorney fee, because we were, once we signed that contract, we were, we closed it in the time that it was supposed to be done. There was no lawsuit filed against us to do it or anything like that. And there was, yes, they were working very well and I would meet with the inspectors and things like that. But there were also miscommunications sometimes between the staff and the building department, because there was a point in time when the building was going to get demoed and we had a permit in revision with the building department. So it's not like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not always just we were in neglect. There were sometimes where there was miscommunication.
Did you understand that when the building gets demoed, it's getting to be a pretty serious situation?
I understand that.
Because on our end, we felt it was serious enough, again, as a council, and again, with the exception of Councilmember Hagan, to authorize the staff to go down this path, which now has incurred $33,000. Obviously, we were exasperated too.
The bill hasn't been paid yet, right?
No.
I didn't think so.
If the council wants to continue this till the next meeting, I could look into whether the city is able to enter into some type of payment arrangement without waiving their ability to go after the tax roll in the future. But I need to look into that to see if that's an
That sounds
option.
reasonable. Do we have a motion?
Are you willing to do that? And here's the thing, but here's the question. What if they don't pay?
That bill.
We've already spent the money, taxpayer money, so that we don't have our own little, you guys remember the ghost ship in Berkeley?
Yes.
70-some-odd people burned to death because the place was, not up to code, and the city was liable for that? And the reason we did this, because we cannot afford to be liable for this. And so therefore, we had to do what we had to do, okay? And we authorized you guys to go down this path, which now has resulted in a $33,000 bill. That, with all due respect, I mean, I'm very happy it's done. But it's not our thing. I mean, it's not our problem. I mean, like I say, unfortunately, you're probably paying for the sins of somebody else on this one. And that's where we're at. Now, if you're willing to look into to see if there's any options.
That's what I'd be looking into. And it might be there's no options, and I'll report back, and then you could just continue, or I will hopefully find some options.
Councilman Hagan has a comment. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just looking at it as like, as a situation where it sounds like a young man was taken advantage of.
Yes.
Personal opinion.
Yes.
And they have the property already there. We've already paid the money to the lawyer. We have, right?
Mm-hmm. We've got to recoup it.
Correct. So I'm looking at, is there an option, like Mark's saying, to potentially allow that process to happen in a period of time, it's not 10 days, because that's, to me, that's not very realistic. Unless you're like a wealthy person, then it's not a very realistic thing. You know what I'm saying?
Let me
Like-
ask you this, are you willing to accept a payment schedule, full amount, if they could come up with a solution like that?
I'm open to discussing something
No,
like.
you didn't answer my question. My question is, if they're willing to structure a payment schedule, which by the way includes all the money, not a cut on it, would you be interested in that settlement?
I would want to discuss it with an
You're not
attorney.
answering my question. My question again, if they were able to structure a payment schedule for you, rather than paying it all one time, would you agree to that?
We don't even know if we can do that yet. That's why Mark is saying to
just asking
continue,
a
yeah, but Mark said he needs to look into it before, so we need to continue this. You're putting the gentleman on the spot, and that's not fair.
Well, I'm trying to get it.
No, you're trying to bully him.
Okay, I'm pulling him. Anyway, bottom line is, if it was possible, would you be interested in that?
I would be looking at all these, I would be open to
Okay, you've
looking at all
answered my
these
question.
things.
Thank you. I'm done. Whatever you guys want to do, do it.
I would make a motion that we continue this discussion in the next meeting. And while Mark will look into different payment structures on this bill.
I would second that.
All those in favor?
No, but,
Aye.
yeah, aye.
We'll all go for that, okay. No
Yes.
problem. Your uncle's the one who should be paying for this. Okay, now, where we at? We're on this other one.
Just want to be clear, was that unanimous?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
I
unanimous,
just want to
yeah.
make sure.
We're gonna end up right back where we were, I'll tell you that. I can see it already. All right, so anyway, number 11. Sunrise Terrace Landscape Maintenance District, number 96.1, public hearing of levy of assessment and confirmation of diagram and assessment for fiscal year 2022 and 2023.
Mayor Els, regarding this item, I have a conflict of interest, so I'll
I
be
know.
leaving the room momentarily.
See you later. All right, good enough.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to introduce Tom Clark from Harrison Associates. He's here. He is, the topic of his work came up at the last meeting when we talked about these districts. His firm does a fabulous job on these, and the reports are based on his work, and he'll be here to answer any questions.
You've seen him here many
But I'm going to
times.
bring this home for you. We've got 5 items. They're all public hearings. I'm going to go
Perfect.
through them pretty quick.
Great.
So, Sunrise Terrace, and please stop me if you have questions. These are the funds that are assessed for this area of town for things like electricity costs, wall maintenance, landscape maintenance within the neighborhood, children's dinosaur park. This is the district that has a cap on the amount that we can charge, so this assessment remains at the same amount. What changes are the line items within it. In other words, costs continue to rise, the amount of money set aside for playground equipment slows, is what I would say. That's the item first before you. Are we taking these individually, Mark?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Are these individual? These public hearings are individual?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's your first one.
Yeah, we can't combine them all and get out of here.
Okay, so we're gonna open a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Any comment on number 11? And nobody. So, anybody online? And nobody. Back to council. Gentlemen, any comment?
No, we can't up it to cover cost. It is what it is.
Okay, so do we have a motion to move on staff's recommendation?
I'll make a motion to move on staff's recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0, 1 abstention. Okay, he may come back in now or no?
Yes.
He's not involved with the next one, is he?
It's not in the next one.
Okay, bring him on in. Number 12, Westwood Country Landscaping Maintenance District, number 02-1, public hearing for levy of assessments and confirmation of diagram and assessments fiscal year 2022-23. Okay, staff.
Okay, so Westwood Country Landscape, this assessment funds maintenance and servicing, ground cover. You can read all of that for this particular area. This year, the increase is minor to 137.60. Based on the budget, there is an annual increase allowed of 3%. We're way below that. And
is all yours.
All righty then, let's open a public hearing. Anybody like to comment on item number 12? I see no one. We're going to go to the phones and to the computers. I see no one. Anyone interested? No. I'll bring it back to council.
I'd move on staff's recommendation.
Second.
Very good. We got a motion. We got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Let's move to 13. Where's that? 13. Okay, Bellaterra Estates. Landscape Maintenance District 01-1, public hearing of levy of assessments and confirmation diagram assessments for the fiscal year 2022 and 23. Staff.
So before you is the Bellaterra Estates, this assessment, electricity cost maintenance, landscape irrigation, drainage systems, et cetera. The rate being proposed is $480.52. Again, a fairly minor increase. This too is way below the allowed increase.
Okay, we're going to open public hearing. Anybody like to comment on item 13? I have somebody right down here. Mr. Clark.
I was introduced as Tom Clark. I also go by Rick.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, we won't hold that
I'm
against you.
sorry. My apologies.
You know the history. I love it.
That's fine. I just wanted to bring up, mention the comment you made, Ms. Bennett, about the landscaping along Brennan Road for Bellaterra. That's something that is kind of industry standard for developments that are like that. That landscaping along the exterior of that tract, even though it's really on a main road, was installed specifically for that tract.
Yeah, that's what I
If
figured.
that tract weren't there, that landscaping wouldn't be there.
Correct.
It's really to enhance the appearance of that landscape. As an example, Sunrise Terrace has it along Escalon Balata Road, and the Estates, LLMB, has it along McHenry. Same situation, so
Got it.
just wanted to.
Thanks for the clarity.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, looked on the computers, no one's on the phones, we're gonna bring it back. I'll accept the motion.
Move on staff's recommendation.
Okay, we have a move.
Second.
Wow, a little competition here, I like that. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Beautiful.
Dominic,
Okay, that's 5-0.
Opening a door.
I'm out for the next two.
Okay, next two, we're losing one. Okay, 14, the Estate Landscape Lighting Maintenance District, number 06-1, public hearing levy on assessments and confirmation of diagram assessments on fiscal year 22-23. All right, staff.
So before you, Estates Landscape and Lighting Maintenance, these
Thanks
assessments
for coming.
cover shrubs, plants, trees, services, and you can read that in this area. The increase is, again, a fairly small amount. 407.56 would be the assessment on this district.
Okay, let's open a public hearing. Anybody want to comment on this item? Okay, anybody on the phones? Anybody on the computers? It doesn't look like it. We'll bring it back to the council. I'll accept the motion.
Move on staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, and we will vote, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it carries 4-0, 4, one abstention. Okay, is that the last one or one more?
One more.
Oh, God, I'm gonna go to sleep. Okay, where is this thing? Here, I had it.
Me
Here, I found it. Jeez. The Estate Benefits Assessment District, number 06-1, public hearing of levy on assessments and confirmation of diagram and assessments for fiscal year 22-23. Staff.
Okay, so this particular Estates Benefit Assessment District funds street lighting, storm drainage facilities, and associated facilities. This one's a lot smaller because it's a lesser amount of services, assessed at $91. This is an 84-cent increase over last year, and that is before you.
Okay. Public hearing's open. Anyone like to comment on this item? 15, please come to the podium. Nobody's coming, so anybody on the phones? Anybody on computers? Okay, the routine. Bring it back to
Motion.
Do it. Do it.
Make a motion. for
council.
the
I'll
fall-
accept the motion.
Aye.
Okay, motion
Fall
second.
staff's report.
Okay. Motion carries. All those in
yeah,
favor?
aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Oh, my,
I told you I'd bring you home.
you guys are killing me. Okay, well, that's the end of the regular show this evening.
Can we bring Councilman
He'll
Bell?
figure it
Oh,
out.
there he is, he's back.
Okay, but we're gonna retire to a private session, in fact, my
Closed session, closed session.
which is really private, but anyway. Okay,
How about council communications?
oh, do we have to do that now? Okay, council communications, Peter, what do you got?
Got a few things. No, I don't. Zero. I'm done. Nothing.
Okay, Councilman Hagan.
I just think we just keep pushing forward with the senior housing stuff, see what we can find, and hopefully we'll find that diamond in the rough somewhere. Other than that, I think we're good.
Councilman Bellinger.
Two things real quick. Those who missed out on the American Legion Tri-Tip / Ice Cream Social on Saturday night missed out. So don't miss the next one, third Saturday of every month down at the hall. Second, today's my youngest 13th birthday. Happy birthday, Jacob, if you see this, buddy. That's all I got.
Okay, Vice Mayor Swift.
The clock says I have nothing tonight.
Me too. That's where I'm at. Okay, meeting adjourned. We're gonna go into a closed
Recessed
session.
closed session.